you know, Ohm stones.
Like carvings.
Yeah, it's spelled Oagham or Oaghm sometimes. So they're like kind of round wiener shaped stones, and they have like notches and stuff all around the sides and all around the outside. Yeah, they're like Viking butt plug rocks, and around the edges they have different kind of like what would you say, like notches and strikes, you know, quite like the Viking written language. But we have loads of those in Ireland, and people say they can read them. Can they? I don't know if it's really real or not. You know.
Have you ever considered doing like a paid world history course where you just teach world history, but just in your way? And I don't mean like podcast style. I mean like just like straight up, like here's a 50-minute lecture from Gordo on the history of the world. That would be awesome.
Dude, I was just thinking about it in the shower. Like when I was in school, you know, I wasn't great like at the whole school thing. You know, the sitting down in the one place and the thing, and we're all facing the same way and we're doing something on the chairs. And but I really loved history, and I was just fascinated with Russian history. And one of the things I wanted to do was be like an archaeologist like Indiana Jones, but studying like ancient Russian stuff as well as like the rest, you know. And I remember applying, you know, when you do your college applications, and I applied to do a course in like Russian language and archaeology. And we have a point system in Ireland where you do your exams, and then whatever grade you get a certain amount of points at the end of each subject, and you add them all up and you get it out of 600 or whatever. And then they choose the college places based on how many people get the points. I missed out. But I ended up learning how to speak Russian just on the streets.
Oh my.
And now I have like a history podcast that ends up being my full-time job. Like shit works out, bro. Do you know, you follow your passions? But yeah, it could be some kind of cool Michelle Pfeiffer teacher that's like sits backward on a chair with a leather jacket going, let me teach you about these kids, about this history. How am I going to get thrown to these kids? Like make them care about shit, you know?
I was teaching science in the States like 20 years ago for a bit. And I do now, you know, I teach in Japan, keep my language simple. Like I don't use like 3-syllable words that much anymore. But yeah. I do remember like using lots of big words then. And some of the parents after being like, yeah, he must be smart. We don't know what he's saying.
that's Russell Brand's whole fucking shtick. You know, he made a career on it
at the time, but I'm not sure it was now.
And what are you teaching in Japan?
English. Yeah. That's what most dirty gaijin are up to in Japan, I guess.
Gaijin. Yeah, so it's like you're not exactly getting into the nuances of Enki and Enlil and you know the
in my classes. If I could, and no, I wouldn't hear much about it because they just
no one would care. You know,
yeah.
Just however they learn English, they learn it that kind of a way. Like,
I guess I should acknowledge we're rolling tape now, aren't we? So I'll three almost 4 minutes, and I'll do an introduction.
Well, I just figured that we could have some behind the scenes Patreon.
We could do that.
We haven't. I'm not coming in late, and you guys hadn't started without me. I'm sorry.
No. We got ripping. Okay. Then I'll do. I guess what I do with my normal.
Sweaty.
I've got my heater on. Actually, I should turn it off. It's probably gotten warm enough in here now.
Well, I was cold, and I needed to have a shower just to feel like I was to separate the day, you know, and the day from the night. And when you're coming in to make love to a stranger
right now,
yeah.
Okay.
I got my night moves, but just when you separate the day from the night, and I just said I have a shower, and the core of my body heated up. I'm like, oh, fat guy in the shower, like fuck. It's very, you know,
it's crazy because you end up just sweating nonstop for like 15 to 20 minutes after you're out of the shower. And I always wonder like how much of that is condensation and like shower leftover versus I'm just like sweating new toxins out.
Yeah.
And, like sort of eliminating part of the shower.
I'm making all new bacteria to turn into smelliness. So by the time I wake up in the morning, there's no point. Like, but look at we're here. We're used to it.
That's why Joe Rogan has it on, man. He does the cold dunks, so you don't have to sweat after that, and then he just hangs out in the isolation tank. So then, like, you're just perpetually sweaty and not sweaty all the time.
Well, apparently, you should be finishing off every hot shower with a cold squirt.
I did that really well for about a year and started in winter, but I more and more just chicken out. Yeah. We got like hot springs in Japan though. So I will often do like hot bath, cold plunge, sauna, cold plunge bath out.
Oh,
so
I love the cold view after a hot sauna or a steam room. Just for some reason in the shower, it just feels wrong.
Yeah.
I don't mind somebody else spanking my arse, but smacking my own arse, it just doesn't do it, you know?
You got to turn those knobs to make it cold, yeah.
But apparently it's a dopamine leveler, you know, that you're actually, if you have that cold burst, the adrenaline comes out at a much more even rate for the next like 3 to 5 hours, rather than coming out of the shower and being like, and then you'd have adrenaline and dopamine coming out in a much more even distribution, you know.
I'll get back to you how my shower works out after this podcast.
Just make sure you don't fuck up the results by having a wank before or after or whatever. Just like make sure it's just like straight washing, no jerking.
All right. Okay.
Because if you're jerking,
no promises. No promises.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying.
I'll go ahead and do a proper introduction. We'll start getting into Atlantis, and any tangents are fine. I could like take that out and put it in the middle. It'd be fine. It's a tangent.
Cool, man.
Welcome to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying. Cool, man. Yeah, you do you. Like you're starting clean. We're going to talk about the movie. I'm going to follow your lead and come in with some bullshit. But ask me questions. I might be put on the spot, and I'll answer with like a fucking one of those answers rather
Israel
than
or Palestine. Go.
Neither. Both. I support the troops, both sides. Both very fine people. No, just like saying, like, if you ask me a question I don't know the answer to, I'll say, like, I don't know, but. And so, like, whatever way.
I'm going to have some, like, I think I remember from reading a bunch 7 years ago sort of things on my end. Yeah,
cool. And usually Matt will have some of the production and, like, movie notes, and then I'll have some more of the tangential, occult sort of. And, like, for example, I've got my Manly Palmer Hall book. That'll pop up here, and I've got some references to Francis Bacon and stuff. So
Whopper.
We're good.
Okay, cool.
Ask about Illuminati since the charting of Peters. Is it Disney mind control? Is this MK Ultra Deluxe? Occult Disney, go wish upon a star. Occult Disney, should know about to chat far. Occult Disney, Pineal Gland, Pinocchio. Occult Disney, as above, so below. Pinocchio seeks fun on Pleasure Island, where traffickers meet just fallen minds. Captain Hook, a lost boy in Neverland, saving kids from Peter Pan's designs. Nemo feels to survive the Barracuda, and that nobody means no one. Snow White never took another breath. Bird Prince, the angel of death has come. Occult Disney, we go from real to real. Occult Disney, Bohemian Grove and no more real. Occult Disney, ask about Illuminati. Occult Disney, we teach occult to everybody. Occult Disney, go wish upon a star. Occult Disney, you know about to travel far. Oh, Occult Disney, Pineal Gland, Pinocchio. Yeah, Occult Disney, it's above, so below. Occult Disney, please enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Occult Disney podcast. It's where we dive deep into the earth to find secrets inside subterranean animals like mice. That was the sweatiest introduction. No, that's not the sweatiest introduction I've ever done. I've done sweatier than that, but this is Matt here. As always, the Paranoid American's there. How's it grooving?
We're good. We're good. I actually would love first to introduce Gordo, but also give Gordo a chance. How would Gordo introduce this episode?
Oh, fuck yous. How are you doing, everybody listening? I guess like we're gonna tickle the balls of one of Disney's potential dynamite properties that got left on the sales floor. People didn't pick it up, and probably going to look at the history of the ancient lost civilizations that we're all finding more and more evidence for, and hope that at some point Graham Hancock tunes in and demands to be included in the show. That's probably...
There we go. We put a plea for Graham Hancock. That's our intro.
Call it Graham.
Yeah, if you're watching this, start tagging Graham Hancock below right now. Just like we make like weird claims about him and say that we made the claims here on this show. Like according to this show here at Graham Hancock, apparently you blank. Yeah.
Hashtag I believe him. Hashtag fuck Flint Dibble or whatever.
Yes, but today it's fully Atlantis. Well, except when we're not talking about Atlantis, which is fine. But yeah, I guess I usually like to break out like what everyone's history is with this movie, which I didn't see when it came out. It came out 2001, summer 2001. I was finishing up being a ruffian in college. That's what I was doing. So. But I got this about 10 years ago because it was like $1 DVD and my daughter was 4 at the time and it seemed like a good choice and I quite enjoyed it. I actually think this is in my upper tier of Disney movies. Maybe it works. It said that the crew of this movie would go around with t-shirts that said, what was it? Oh, less songs, more explosions. I mean, I like that. Less songs, more explosions.
Oh,
sure.
There weren't any songs in this, were there?
No, the production.
I just realized that.
The production was like, as far as I understood, I don't want to jump the gun around, but as far as I understood, the production was hampered greatly. Big ideas veering out from like the likes of your Beauty and the Beast, your Hunchbacks of Notre Dame. You know, your sing along, trying to find that hit song. I can show you my bud, shining, shimmering,
they got one at the end of this, though.
Yeah, but you know, they don't even include Kira in the Disney princess kind of pantheon, which I think is kind of unfair.
Yeah, she is a princess, but she didn't sing.
Well, I don't know if she's. We'll get into this later. I don't even know if she's human, and I think you have to be human to be a princess.
Ariel's a motherfucking mermaid, son. She's half human.
Okay.
Princess of Mars. She's a Martian.
There you go.
Princess Leia. Come on. Is Princess Leia human?
I mean, humanoid.
Alderanian.
Yeah. It's the closest thing to white. Am I right? But yeah, it's like the production was like very ambitious, and I don't remember watching it in 2001 because I was at the time smoking drugs like it was my job in my first year in college, trying to get over the fact that 9/11 had just happened. I guess this came out in April, and all through the summer I was like, can't wait for them towers, son. And it just never, it never got to me. I had also got stung by Ireland's version of Blockbuster, which was called Extra Vision, where you go in and rent out DVDs and games for your PlayStation 1, etc. And I, while under the influence of hashish, rented out a copy of Finding Nemo that I never returned. And I think the bill was something like 300 and something euros or pounds because of the fines that had accumulated that I never paid. And I was kind of like, fuck Disney movies after that. If they're going to, I'm going to pirate every single one of them now to pay back that 300 quid. But yeah, no, I missed it.
Excellent. You paid the late fee, as you had to wait it out till they just went out of business, like Blockbuster.
Yeah, but that's what they did. They waited out. I made another account and came back in, and it was a small town, and people started talking. There was whispers. There was fucking, rumors. That's the Finding Nemo guy. Didn't return it.
So when was the first time you watched it? Just recently, or have you seen it sometime after it came out?
I watched it maybe a few months ago with my daughter, who's just turned 3. And she was like, this is scary. And I'm like, yeah. And we stopped at about 40 minutes in when they were fighting the Leviathan. And she's like, what? Too many explosions. So yeah, maybe a bit young there. And I watched it in toto over the last couple of days, once or twice. And I didn't get into the second movie yet. But like, it was supposed to be this big whole thing, and then it turned into like a kind of a flop, which was unfair, I think.
Yeah, it was supposed to. They're going to do a spin-off TV show. They're going to make a Disneyland attraction, redo the submarine voyage for that. They're going to build a volcano in Florida.
Yeah.
That said, ironically, right when this movie came out, they were opening Disney Sea in Tokyo, which basically has Atlantis land. I mean, it's Jules Verne land. So
40,000 Leagues job.
They got that, and they got Journey to the Center of the Earth, with a lava monster, which is, so it's not specifically what you see in this movie, but you do visit Atlantis and see pixie-ish creatures that again are not the ones in this movie. So it's one of those cases where it's like they could have done some synergy, but they didn't, which maybe was good because it wasn't that successful. But
it definitely should have been based on its own merit. The story, the cast, the character building, like everything in it, I feel definitely warranted like a hit. But I think between, as far as I understood, in the start, because it takes like 3 to 4 years maybe to produce something like this. So midway through, there was something about, like this was, as you said, more less songs, more action or something like that.
Yeah, so they were used to doing musical numbers, and now they have to do a riveting action sequence with James Newton Howard doing the music. And I think they did it fine. But yeah, one of the other things they blame it on is the competition. This came out right with Shrek and Lara Croft Tomb Raider, which I guess that was a reasonable hit. But you could see where that might split the audience a little bit, because that's kind of a similar vibe. As far as
the Indiana Jonesy with Diddy's kind of vibe. People were like, "Oh, we'd rather watch an adventure movie and watch what's her name? We can drink Billy Bob Thornton's blood. What's her name?
Angelina Jolie. Yeah,
that's the one. That's the one.
Woman with asshole lips.
What's the your name?
I'd love to see her just running into a wall, going, just run again and again, and sticking the PlayStation controller right in your gooch so it vibrates on your nutsack.
She picks what I was going to say was
every time, son. I can still hear that haunting Lara Croft sound in my dreams. But
there's a punchline to the that was the first week. Second week, the movie it just went way down, and Dr. Dolittle 2 apparently beat the shit out of it.
Wow. Man, that hurt. So none of us are conspiracy theorists, but if we were, you could almost make a point that Atlantis, this movie, was a little bit too on the nose. It was a little bit too much into the knowledge lane, and it was like, get that out of here. Like we'll do the Happy Meal toys. Let's get Dr. Dolittle. Let's get Lara Croft up in here.
Let's get a black man who talks to animals.
That actually sounds delightful already.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, why was I watching Atlantis? I could have been watching that. I haven't seen those movies at all. So I think we'd all been burned enough by Eddie Murphy in 2001 that you weren't just going to see his new film anymore.
Yeah, he wasn't dependable in them days. But they had all these as you said, like set action pieces and stuff. Like we're talking about like pre-World War One, gun violence. There was loads of machine guns, soldiers, mercenaries, just bad cunts acting badly. And apparently there was way more action scenes. Like the script was like 200 pages or something like that. And when they presented it to the execs, it was like a 2-hour presentation. It's like, we can't have a Disney movie that's 2 hours long. Like, this is bananas. But while development was going on, Columbine happened, and they were like, "Oh, we got to cut all those scenes of like bodies hitting the floor, man," because there was originally supposed to be bodies and bodies and bodies in this movie. Like the journey to get there was way more bloody and way more time consuming.
I need to see this version.
Yeah, I'd love to see that version.
Even the release version, I have my notes. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of sudden deaths for a Disney movie. Because what is it? They actually say there's you see about 18 people standing there, and they said they had a 200-person crew. So you're like, well, that's 95% fatality rate.
But they were all written to die. Like, you know, I don't know how detailed or chronologically you want to cover it, but one of the most disturbing things was that kind of Independence Day when in that last scene where they're all trying to get to shoot the missile up into the G spot of the spaceship, you know, the green laser bit, because it's like, shoot it in the fucking clitoris and it explodes. And Randy Quaid is like, hello boys, I'm back, like this. You can see the guys like flying the planes and then going like, whatever, red 12, Fox 2, fire, red 13, Fox 2, oh, it's jammed, you know, and then they blow up in this, like, they get lasered to bits and they die. And you're like, oh, Jesus, I remember that guy. He was, when they were making the speech, and it was all like, we're not going to go down and out of fight. Not going to go into the night. We're going to survive. And you see him melt in his fucking plane or whatever. In this fucking movie that happens in animation, where they're fighting the Leviathan, and your man goes, launch the submarines, or launch the pods, and then like loads of fucking pods come out, and then the yoke is chasing them through the tunnel, and you see guys and they're looking like animated men to look with the terror of impending death, because they're like this, like freaking out that there's a fucking electric lobster that's going to fucking chop them up in bits. And then they just like disintegrate into a fiery ball, and like you're a child going like, "Are they okay?" Like, of course it's not gonna. Yeah, what
just ink. It's fine. It's ink and it's on digital paper. Well, it's digital ink probably too, but
but to show like to animate frame by frame like the genuine like terror on an animated face of like certain death, like that's like. I've never seen that shit before, you know?
I mean, Disney was pushing really hard to make the boy movie because they had the princess movies. The Lion King brought in a few, like, oh, wow, can we make this work a few more times? And I mean, this is maybe the strongest attempt until this and Treasure Planet were the strongest attempts until there's like, gave up, fuck it, let's buy Star Wars and Marvel.
Yeah. Go straight on the nose, like. Treasure Planet is decent as well, and it has that same kind of that goofy fucking Phantom 2040 style, or I think it's like the Hellboy guy style.
This one actually, he was involved with the production. They were showing him stills, and he's like, those hands look really good. They're like, yeah, you did a seminar on how to do that. That's why they look that way. So they looked exactly like he wanted them to, and he didn't know it.
I think we're unanimous on this being like a top Disney hit, but we also just got 3 guys that are talking about this, which might be part of that. And I remember the first time that I ever saw this, it was right after I got out of boot camp, and I was at my first like training base in Biloxi, Mississippi. And I just remember this movie coming on, and I never even registered me this was a Disney movie at the time when I was watching it, because there was no music. There's lots of explosions, lots of people dying. And even the bad like villain chick, she had this like Aeon Flux style animation to her. Her like shirt is like constantly like falling off of her shoulder, and like it felt so anti-Disney from anything I'd seen. And even when I was watching it earlier this week, when I was going to make my notes, the first time that I was like, oh, how long have I been watching this? I was like, oh my God, I'm already like an hour and 4 minutes in. Usually, I don't know, like 30 minutes into any Disney movie, I'm kind of like, all right, how much longer we got for this one? And
you can feel the Disney out of it. Yeah.
This one was like, I was impressed all the way to the end. I mean, like even the ending kind of like knocked me off my seat a little bit. I don't know. I love this movie. I don't know if I can say top 3 or top 5. I can definitely say top 10.
Oh yeah, it's definitely in my top 10 now. It only took you an hour and 4 minutes to bust a nut over your one's
no. That was
shirt.
That's when the chafing began. No, but that was the first time that I looked down to see like, okay, how far are we through this movie? Because there was like the first lull, and I wouldn't even say lull because like 30 seconds later it was moving again.
I bet you $10 that it was like a slow emotional moment that you weren't able for at the time, and you were like, oh, fucking them. They were having feelings or something. You're like, oh.
I took an accidental nap at 55 minutes in, woke up with 10 minutes to go and had to reverse course and watch all that again, which happens sometimes because I watched
I did exactly
midnight. Yeah,
I did exactly the same thing. At 55 minutes, I half paused it in my sleep. It was at the point where the firebugs were coming down off the bridge and setting fire because it was the longest.
There might be a subliminal message somewhere in this movie.
I don't know, man. There was a period of time when there was like a lot of action with no dialogue, and
I think that's what did it. Yeah,
I often find. I would fall asleep in the cinema at a Marvel movie if there's more than like 6 minutes, or at a Transformers movie, man. They're like fucking ambient to me. It's just like I watch it and it's like, but I fucking like straight away I'm out because it's just like there's nothing, there's no dialogue, there's nothing interesting to hang on to. It's just like fucking I wank, and it doesn't do anything for me. Like it just puts me out,
Sometimes in my notes for films, I just write loud noises in all caps. For this movie, I did not do that. What were my recent movie naps? I saw Godzilla Kong last week. I got sleepy, but I did not fall asleep. But I got sleepy during the, just loud noises section of the movie.
I wonder what that is.
I saw the Barbie movie and accidentally slept through like half of it. Like I woke up for the credits. I was like, oh, that's funny. They're doing fake ending credits. Oh, those are the real ending credits. And I liked the movie. It was after a full day of work.
Was this a theater experience or was this
was a theater experience? I felt extra stupid.
I fall asleep in the movie theater every time, no matter what. I remember the biggest one was when the new Jason, they did like the Jason reboot, and I showed up and I had like a Jason shirt. I was like pumped. I got like the special cup. I was like, I had watched all the Jason movies the week leading up to it. And then like 15 minutes into the movie, I'm just snoring, like actually snoring. And I remember waking up this scene when like he's like stabbing some chick under the floorboards and like the knife's going down. It's like hitting people in the head. There's like blood squirting out. And I remember like waking up, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool scene. And then like going right back to sleep. There's something about being in a movie theater that I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I love to know. Like, I'm going to actually look that up. What the phenomenon is with that action sequence, loud noises that makes people nod off. And I bet it's only certain people that have experienced some kind of terrible trauma psychologically, where they're just like,
I'm out.
Yeah, murder.
It might be like a white noise effect. It all just turns into.
Yeah, it's like whale song.
Yeah.
But
so, there's a little boom, boom. Yeah.
That would be a sick white noise machine to go to sleep too. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now, honey. And you turn it on and
just light strangling sounds. Just
I think we might be onto something here. There's a good novelty market for just ambient strangling noises.
Well, Halloween, you sell them, yeah. I think I've said before, I'm terrified of my alarm clock. It's too loud. So I rarely set it because I don't need to most of the time, but I'll always wake up 5 or 10 minutes before and then like put it like halfway under my cover. So I'll still hear it a little bit.
You should get one of those alarm clock pillows that gently
terrifying. What is it? Just start shaking on you?
It very gently vibrates, and then there's a light inside of it that kind of flashes in different patterns. So if you have your head on it, like it's like a consciousness interrupter, so it'll wake you up. So it's in the pillow. Yeah. Or you can have like a small speaker in it. This is like, and it's not so violent as,
We're
that's
talking
mine.
about
Yeah.
psychic driving right now, are we not? This is you and Cameron sort of material.
Well, 90% I get to avoid the psychic driving then because I rarely use my alarm clock. Yeah, I'll have to use it next week because I have to wake up for an earlier podcast. But
what's psychic driving?
The psychic driving was one of the MK Ultra sub projects. It was Dr. Ewan Cameron, where he would record you saying either a positive or a negative message, and then you would have to listen to it on a loop for days, months, sometimes under lots of insulin therapy, LSD, fill in the blank. And the psychic driving was basically if you hear your own voice saying, Gordo, you're great, you're going to do awesome today, nonstop, the Stuart Smalley kind of thing. But then there was also ones that was like, you suck, you can't do anything right, everything, like everybody hates you. And imagine listening to that in your voice for a month straight on acid. So
what do you mean imagine? What do you mean imagine?
Our episode about Ewan Cameron.
Oh, wait, isn't that a normal day? No.
That's the shit. That's the shit I have already, man. I'm like, what kind of tablets makes that go away?
Maybe we could reverse psychic drive you into just like some Stuart Smalley, you know?
Yeah.
You're smart, you're beautiful, everybody likes you. What is it?
You're a strong, confident woman. You don't need to smoke. Cigarettes are bad. You are strong.
Yeah, fucking Joey Tribbiani job.
The problem with Cameron is that some of the ladies would go with mild depression and come out like completely like MK Ultra.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to
Bill
like go to
Cosby.
the bathroom by themselves anymore.
Fully dependent or like learned helplessness or whatever.
Just mind mush, I think was the technical term.
Fuck.
I mean, I've got my mind machine. Have I discussed my mind machine before?
Is this the thing where you put it on and it has the 3 colors and it gives you like the LSD experience? I've tried one before. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. A binaural beats. Yeah, it's like do you have a whole headset?
Yeah.
Cool,
glass
man.
with LED lights, use your own headphones, and it has a series of programs. You can put in like a 10-minute, like super trippy one, or a very slow moving hour-long one, or something for different purposes. That said, I have it. I'll go into spurts where I use it. Usually, I use it for actual like meditation, just to kind of add in. I mean, if you're just sitting there and like looking at the pretty lights, it is fun, but it's better to kind of meld it with something.
Yeah, I've had somebody years ago actually give me one, and you close your eyes and it shines on the outside of your closed eyes, so it gives all these like it's like RGB or whatever, but it gives you like all the fucking it feels very comfortable. I used to do that when I was a kid. I'd sit and I'd push on my eyeballs like this until I saw like this fucking Lawnmower Man infinite horizon of black and white squares. That's like, and I'm like flying through space, and they're like flying towards me. That's what happens when I push on my eyeballs.
I did plenty of that.
I've never heard anyone using ocular compression as a way to just like hallucinate. That's awesome.
I've done it. Maybe actually, weirdly, one of the strongest things I ever had was as a kid being in. My parents went to Episcopal church, so and being in the balcony and like the priest is giving like a 20-minute sermon or whatever, and just like staring directly at him. And it's the candle meditation, really, but it was most effective when I was like 8 years old, and everything around him would disappear. Then finally he would disappear. My eyes are wide open, and now I'm like, wow, that was actually some profound shit I was doing there.
I used to do that with a candle, bro, all the fucking time, because I read a Roald Dahl short story that's just been made into a movie with Benedict Cumberbatch called The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Don't know if you've seen it.
No.
So it's very quickly, not fucking taking over the whole thing. It's about a man who worked in a hospital who wasn't rich. He wasn't, nothing to write home about. And he was in India. He was a British man in India during occupation. And he saw this Indian man walk into a hospital and have his eyes glued shut. And they put like stuff over his eyes and put like, wet bread and dough, and then like bandage his whole head up as part of like a circus act. And this was like a promo for the circus. And he said he can see without seeing. And he watched him glue the whole eyes and do the whole thing. And then your man walked out and he was like dodging around stuff as if he could see without seeing. And he followed him out to the forest, and he found out he was a yogi, and your man taught him how to do this thing. And part of it was like sitting and looking at a flame, and eventually he was able to see without seeing, and he could see through like playing cards. And obviously what's a white man going to do when he can do that? He went to fucking Las Vegas and he made loads of money, but he felt empty inside. And then he ended up giving all his money away and making a charity for billions of dollars that he won from gambling. And spoiler alert, it's a 45-year-old book. He eventually like saw without seeing, saw through his body, and saw like a fucking blood clot working its way up into his heart. And then like he died, like watched himself die from the blood clot with his sight beyond sight. But it gives like super detailed, like maybe 8 pages of the children's book on all the things you have to do. Like get the candle, it has to be like 20 centimeters at eye level comfortably. Relax your eyes. Make sure that the wick is a certain length so you can get like the black part and concentrate. And I was like, this like ruining my eyesight. Like it's 7 and 8 and 9 years of age, and everything around it disappear. And Yeah, it was a weird thing to be doing, to be honest.
There's
How do I
metaphysical
describe
books that
it?
have the same chapter, right? They just have different chapters around that.
And
Yeah, I
I'm
guess-
pretty sure from our episode on James and the Giant Peach that Roald Dahl was an intelligence agent, and he helped get America into the World War. Like, there's no question in my mind.
Absolutely, don't doubt it. Yeah. He had a whole book about World War One and his experiences through that, and I think no more than Crowley was inculcated into the intelligence community.
Well, that sounds pretty Crowleyan, the whole like staring at the candle and describing how to do that to like the layman. That's a very like Crowleyan thing to do. I get Crowley would just would have been
blood
doing
and
it
jizz
naked.
involved.
Was there blood and jizz? Yeah, I was eating cakes
that would make
of
it more
light,
Crowleyan, yeah.
eating little rice cakes of light and looking into the fucking candle.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it was a weird thing to be doing as a kid. I don't know why I felt the need to tell that story, because you were like, I was looking at the priest and the priest disappeared. I was like, yeah, me too. I was looking at the priest and the priest disappeared. And I was like, oh no, where's he gone?
That's
Quick,
a good thing.
find him.
Good when the priest disappears.
He could be anywhere. Pop up behind you. But
I guess in this movie, though, we're going more with this one doesn't really teach you to meditate anything, I guess, but it does have all the crystal stuff, which is, another chapter of said metaphysical book, not the doll book, but, have a chapter on staring at a candle, have a chapter about crystals, that sort of thing.
Oh, the magic is solid in this, like the mythological energy source, the hollow earth, Agartha, the inner sanctum.
I keep a little pouch of gems in my pocket because when I was I do a ton of walking. That's why I listen to podcasts. And it was weird. Halfway up a mountain, because I live in the mountains of Japan, not like Tokyo, there was a vending machine with power stones. So every time I'd pass, I just buy one, and eventually now I have this little bag of stones in my pocket for 8 years now. So, it's like, you could be like, oh, stones, I don't see it, but well, okay, why not? I got room in my pocket for that.
And do you leave them out on the windowsill on full moons for them to charge up and stuff like that?
No, I leave them in there. The only time I see them is when the tie comes undone and then they come out in my pocket. That's when I see them. And I decide that particular one, nobody could see them. Only I could see them. I have another bag, and I use those as game pieces for board games when I'm teaching. So I do share some of them, but the ones in my pocket I don't share.
You said that so aggressively. And the ones in my pocket are for me only. Fucking calm down, man. Jesus Christ. But apparently for those energy crystals and stones, you're supposed to leave them out for sun energy and moon energy at certain times of the cycle and certain times of the year, no?
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not following any prescribed course of action here. It's
right.
Mostly it's I'm into metaphysical stuff. There's this weird vending machine halfway up a mountain, which is no longer there, by the way. So I now have all my stones. Yeah. Oh, they have other vending machines.
Or did you?
I doubt it.
How did they get the vending machines all the way up the mountain? They Pokemon.
Well, this is a road, so.
All right. But it's pretty convincing. The magic or the powers, everything seems to be pretty airtight when it's described. You see it being used at the start of the film, and I thought it was aliens, or the opening scene is pretty dramatic. The destruction of Atlantis. Young girl loses her mother. Blue light fucking sucks her up.
The same guy that created Klingon apparently created the Atlantean language for this movie, just as a fun fact.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, it sounds pretty legit. Some kind of Aramaic, because they don't really know how that's spoken. It's just written.
The description on Wiki is that he would just use a mixture of Indo-European languages, and then if something sounded too much like a real sentence, he would just make up a word and insert that to replace it. Because I guess some words are so universal, most languages you'll understand it, nah, nah, no, nah, so that sort of thing. Like
Dothraki or something trying to redo Klingon, and people are like, yeah, I'm learning Dothraki, and then they watch season 8 and they're like, not fucking learning Dothraki anymore.
I have a coworker who is that the Star Wars language, Dothraki?
No, that's the Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I
horse
don't
people.
remember what the Star Wars one is called, but I have a coworker.
Klingon, isn't it? No,
That's Trek.
Star Trek.
Star
Wars
Trek.
has a different one. But I have a coworker who writes her notes in that. Like she ciphers all of her notes in the Star Wars language.
I feel like all those people belong on lists somewhere. The ones that like actually know Klingon and actually because they're using it as a cipher for what reason? What are you hiding?
I think she just didn't want people to read her notes. I think there was a time where I just write it backwards. You have to look in a mirror. Oh, that's Crowley stuff. But I was just doing it so Japanese staff wouldn't see what I was writing because I was writing like jokes in my notes.
I think the language itself, it looks like that kind of Norse. Like I said, there's like a Norse vibe to it, and there's also that what's that like Central American, like the wiggly circle, the sun circles, and the men, like it has like, so not Mayan or Incan, but that kind of like Olmec, like kind of pre-writing type,
Yeah, I was always confused by what is it, the Incans had like the chords. They'd read the chords. That sounds like, how does that work?
Yeah. So I think it's Olmec writing that has those the guys where they have the fucking like the giant spider that you can only see from an airplane, and it's
Nazca lines,
Nazca lines, and so that's all. I think it's pre-Incan, so it's like whoever was before the Incans. But they're the lads who started using like little kind of symbols, and you can see like different things like Norse in the text. So I was pausing it, in the scene where they go under the water to read the old thing, like, and I just played what's it called, God of War. And Ragnarok, those two games, and there's a lot of like Norse writing. Like you can recognize the shapes, and it's kind of like, instead of being very sharp like that, those kind of Viking letters would be. It's those, but like with a little bit of a twist. I can read and write in Russian pretty well, like not brilliantly, but pretty well, and you can see some of the kind of Cyrillic shapes, and then you can see those Central American type shapes in the language as well, but. It seems like the science, the history, like everything was really robust when it came to Atlantis. The world building, as you said before, like they were trying to build this movie up to be an adventure movie that was going to have a spin-off TV series, fucking a ride in all of the theme parks, repurpose some Jules Verne shit, like. It was the potential was really huge, and it just didn't hit in the right spot. But like all the lore was there, the info was there, the set pieces, the characters, like not to say like the science was sound, but like within that world, how the science worked seemed pretty robustly created, and that's not usual. Usually it's this MacGuffin-y, half-arsed, watery kind of example of like, it's just 88 miles an hour, Marty. Like, it just.
Well, I got one hole that I need to poke in this one, because there was one thing that stood out to me at the very beginning. The girl Kita, she's talking to her father, and she's kind of being critical about, we should look outside because our people are starving. We're running out of food. There's like this whole aspect of like they wanted to leave Atlantis, or at least venture out so that they could gather resources. But then you find out, spoiler alert, towards the end of the movie, that they've got this energy source that converts emotion into energy and life somehow. And that as long as they're by it, they can basically live forever. She's been alive for like 8,000 years. So that was one thing I couldn't wrap my head around. Like, well, are you starving, or do you live forever because you're next to this energy source? And what does it matter if, like, why are you eating at all? Because they were eating shrimp. So, I mean, I don't know where all the hypotheticals go, but could you starve yourself to death in Atlantis if you were right next to this big energy ball?
I don't think she meant starving as in like hunger, possibly.
But they did eat.
They did eat. They were eating these weird crab shrimps.
So if they didn't eat, would you die? I mean, it's just a hypothetical. We don't have the answer, I don't think. But if you can live to 8,000 years old, can you skip a few meals, or is that a big deal?
if you didn't need to eat, would you still want to eat? Because sometimes it's fun to have a nice dinner.
And if you did eat, where would you shit? And is there a sewer system in Atlantis?
It got the water around it.
Yeah, but how long? I didn't see any water treatment plants in all the flybys.
Yeah, it's just looking.
It's a valid question.
Crystals.
Yeah, where did 8,000 years of fecal matter end up in this little bubble environment?
Exactly. You're rocking into an underground cave. You had to fight a giant fucking electric scorpion lobster, and you come into the place and you're like, oh my god, it's so, what the fuck is that? Jesus.
I bet it
sounds like San Francisco.
Quite ripe. You get fire, brimstone, then you get ripeness. I mean, it's an ecosystem like in a cave.
That's where the sulfur type of smell comes from, or the ammonia. It's just like, what the fuck?
Think about how many movies you'd hate if they were all in smell-o-vision, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not so fun anymore. You got sewers, you got turtle funk, all that wouldn't be a good smelling movie.
I was going to say a lot of Eddie Murphy movies was a callback earlier on, but that'd be a bit racist.
I feel like we could actually jump the gun a little bit. We could get some early traction on adding smellometers to every movie. Like, is there any single movie site that rates how well it smells? Because you could almost surmise how well a movie would smell by watching it, and then when smell-o-vision does come out, we would already be we'd laid all that ground.
I just want to be clear. The Eddie Murphy movies I was talking about were the Dr. Dolittle movies because of the smell of all the animals, not because of
Eddie Murphy himself.
Yeah, it's not like that Richard Pryor thing was like, well, I went to Africa, man, and my people, he got in the car and I was like, oh dear, like what's that? Oh duh. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the Dolittle movies was a lot of wildlife, and
I just assumed you meant that the clumps all sit around a table farting. That's not racist. That's flatulent.
yeah. All the John Candy movies would be just stinking.
Yeah. I often actually do bring up smell-o-vision when talking about movies, but animated movies you think about less. So I haven't really brought it up on this podcast, I guess.
What do you think inner space smells like?
Yeah, the inside of Martin's short.
Inside of Martin's shorts.
Or The Little Mermaid, if you're talking about
Fishy Girl, yeah. I think I did bring it up in that one, actually.
Smell you the world. The fuck? Ladies, please. Jesus.
Get back in the water, please.
Yeah. You think having legs is a good thing? We can close them shits up. The fuck?
So apparently in this movie, their vision of Atlantis was kind of the production went mostly into Edgar Casey's stuff, which that's a good call. Why, if you're making a movie, do that. That makes sense. But there are other visions, I guess, of Atlantis. Again, I was saying some of my thoughts are from reading things 7 years ago, but black and red bulls, that sort of thing. I feel like is another version of Atlantis that you might see somewhere, and probably has been in some kind of media. So
the opening scene had those Plato's kind of the concentric circles. I think it's the 10 rings, and that also is told in the Zechariah Sitchin translations of those Sumerian tablets, where it's I think in our Atlantis episode and on those conspiracy guys, and which is my podcast, by the way, anyone listening who don't know me, we have an episode on Atlantis, and then the episode on Zechariah Sitchin and his writings himself. So I did a 2-parter. Before we used to do 6 and 7 hour episodes. I did 3-hour episodes, and sometimes I doubled up because the topic was long enough. So we did one that was just on the Anunnaki, Nibiru and the Anunnaki. Another one was on Zechariah Sitchin and all the other adjacent stuff. And they talked about Atlantis being an island of tribes. So there was 12 tribes, and then from that we get the Kundalini imagery. Those circles that are all joined together, and one of those was left over, that they weren't true Atlanteans. They were in fact the original Jews, who were time travelers, who traveled 1 million years from the future back into the past, or 1 million years from the past into the future, using a Merkaba, and they were given 1/12 of the land of Atlantis to live in, And they knew that there was an upcoming cataclysm that was going to destroy Atlantis, and they didn't tell everybody else. And they saved themselves.
There's an Israel-Palestine conflict in Atlantis in this version that you're describing.
Well, it basically, I think it could be wrapped up in maybe Zechariah Sitchin's political, self-effacement about like how persecuted the Jewish people are, and it's like even 20,000 years ago when Atlantis was, the Jews were being fucked with, But apparently these guys came from like a time traveling super science race, and they escaped. As far as I know, they escaped Mars when it was populated, and there was a nuclear explosion in the north and south poles of Mars, where the two major centers of population were wiped out, and there's scientific evidence of like a xenon 223, I think, is the isotope residue that happens when there's a nuclear bomb, and it remains in the atmosphere, and you test it. So they've tested it, and they're able to see like that there's like, you get this stuff, it's like lightning glass when there's like a nuclear explosion over sand and stuff, and you can see that like on the surface of Mars, right? So they're assuming that there was a war between the northern people and the southern people, and they both sent nukes and flattened each other out. And to save themselves, the Jews all hopped into a Merkaba spaceshipy type thing and went and landed in Atlantis and went, "Hey, what's going on over here? You guys look like you like fish. So do we. Let's go." And
are there any Jews in the Jetsons?
Mel Brooks did it twice. History of the World Part 1 and 2.
And then there's a bunch of Italian guys going over here going, "Hey, we got the seventh fish, but that's only at Christmas. All right, calm down. And the Jews are like, "Okay, so we're going to take one part of it over here, okay? We're just going to take 1/12. We're going to say nothing. We're going to stick to ourselves. If you need anything, just give us a holler." No? And so they said like they knew apparently that there was going to be a fucking disaster, and they didn't tell everybody else. And Atlantis got wiped out. No, yeah, exactly. They knew, the fucking Israelis, all the boxes. Did you see the picture that came out? They're up in the thing looking like this. Yes. Did you see that? See that picture?
No, I don't think so.
In the context of Atlantis?
No, in the context of 9/11.
I just know I've seen the footage of them dancing on the building tops.
I'll send you a picture from inside of one of the buildings where they have like boxes and boxes of demolition caps, and it's written on the motherfucking box. And there are three guys who are identified as Israeli students observing the Twin Towers in the days before the attacks. Anyway, so the time traveling Jews landed in the Hebrews. They called themselves, which is the name of their race or whatever, and they landed in and said like to the Atlanteans, we'll stay here and we'll share our knowledge and shit with you, like. And when the disaster happened and Atlantis sunk, all of those demigods, because Atlantis was basically filled with like real good looking kind of advanced monkeys that like Enki and Enlil and all them had fucked with and kind of like engineered and whatever. And then a couple of the good looking ones, they fucking sneak down at night time and give them an old, "How are you getting on?" And they would end up having babies, and they were all fucking demigods, and they were able to have magic powers and shit like that. And they were all scattered to the winds when the land of Atlantis was destroyed. But the Jews apparently had like up sticks and bounced before that, didn't tell anybody. And that's like, according to Zechariah, this is all Zechariah Sitchin's writings, like, and he's like, so that's why people don't like the Jews, because in a magic land that no one can find, they knew about the disaster before it was going to happen. And now that's why everyone hates the Jews. It's not because of the money lending of usury or anything like that. Like, it's a mad story to be able to pull out of like, an ancient, what's it called? Cuneiformly written fucking tablets from a dead language. But that's what he pulled out. That's the fucking tale he tells, Like, I think the accurate Platonic description of Atlantis and how it kind of looked with the kind of Greekish pillars and stuff like that. In that opening scene was really awesome. And then there was a callback to it later on when they were on their way to Atlantis, where Milo, the Michael J. Fox skinny man character, anti-Disney hero man, he's like, man, this pillar, it's amazing. It's like a half a mile high. It probably took 100 years, probably 1,000 years to carve this. And then the demolitions expert just like, it's like, I turned it into a bridge in like 10 seconds, maybe 11. You know, it's like a funny
time to destroy something.
Like a funny scene, but like, you know, when Milo's looking at it with his archaeological eyes going like, Jesus Christ, like if this is an example of what we're dealing with here, like look at the fucking size of this thing and how long it took, and how easy it is to tear it down, you know?
Yeah, I think their plan on this movie was to avoid it looking Greek. So their idea was, you know, kind of like fusing like Southeastern, you know, Tibetan or Cambodian temples together. And that's technically what their when we get to Atlantis, that's kind of the vibe they were going for.
Yeah, so the Angkor Wat.
More of a Shangri-La, I guess, when you're you know.
And like you said, the Edgar Casey kind of descriptions, but also when you saw Atlantis for the first time and I had that elevated plate, like that flat Earth theory type of like a flat plane flying through space type of job with the water
with the
coming
little
over the
firmament
sides.
dome,
Firmament dome and all that stuff. It definitely looked like a you know, an Agartha, which is the Hollow Earth, the inner Earth, and it followed that whole, like we did the whole episode on the Hollow Earth, and Admiral Byrd and all of those guys, like, you know, discovering a civilization inside the planet, and like Earth has like a mouth hole and a butthole, and you can enter either side, and which, you know, and
except in Texas, unless you provide an ID.
yeah. He's like, it's just like, I want to get air gapped. Yeah, come on, Jupiter. They're getting double dipped. But yeah, like Agartha is this land of what that looked like in the movie, which is, you know, these creatures lounging around and having like, you know, infinite lifespans and working off of an energy that's like an inner sun, they call it, and they were able to like not photosynthesize. What would be the human version of photosynthesis? Whatever, be able to get energy without food, and
well, they said it converted emotion into their life force. So, and I've got, so here's a hypothetical on this, because as I'm watching this, something clicked, and maybe this is my own like cynical brain, but are Atlanteans, are they like hiding this life source from the rest of humanity, so that if they took this life source and brought it into Atlanta, right, does that mean that everyone in Atlanta now gets to live to 8,000 years? And if that's the case, the Atlanteans are kind of like the biggest dicks ever. Like they kind of are like the older brother that took your Game Boy and he's like, I'll give it right back, and he plays it for 8,000 years. And then when you want to get it back, and it's like, no, but I'll die without it. But technically, aren't we dying without it? Isn't that why we die around 80 and they get to live to 8,000? Is because they've got this freaking energy source?
Well, they're talking about, you know, the guys in the Bible, Gilgamesh and all these people that lived for fucking, you know, 900 years. Like the older humans that were talked about in legend. Now it seems to be our folklore or myth or religion or whatever. They always had like a massive lifespan, 300 and 500 years. Like Noah was like 800 years old when he was started building the fucking ark, you know, and it took him 200 years to build it. So how's that going to live into 1,000?
Like Crow.
Yeah, rough. It's like, I'm going for a kind of a Noah vibe here. It's between Noah and Rick Rubin. That's what I'm going for here. But I'll build you ship.
Don't drink. Don't get drunk and pass out in your tent. That's what I'm going to say.
I'll build your ship, and the soundtrack would be class on the radio as we're driving around. But it just fucking clicked with me, like the energy source that was hidden. You're talking about those people inside. There's Hopi Indian legends, you know, where when the cataclysm comes, all of those people go inside to these underground cities. You're talking like the Pueblos of New Mexico and Arizona and Western Texas. You're talking about things like Derin Kuyu in Turkey, and huge underground cavernous cities carved inside the mountains that aren't too dissimilar to what we see in this movie. And it was made easy for us to understand by Milo reiterating, it's like a grease trap. It's like a grease trap in a sink. We go down under and then we come back up the other side, and it's locked off. We just have to get through the fucking ginormous electric lobster shrimp or whatever,
Which is also how you keep sewer gas out of your home too, since we were talking about Atlantis as being a big cesspool.
It's the U-band in the toilet, that keeps the badness out. So like that could be like a thing, like the inner earth, like Hitler and the Nazis went looking for the inner earth. They went looking for that hole, that entrance. They went to Tibet, they went to Central America, they went to Antarctica famously, and hundreds of them went and never came back. Now there could be fucking brown bread floating around at the bottom of the sea somewhere, but they also could have got in. And if this property had gone on, because we're talking about like 1914 is when the movie's set, as far as I understand, the first one. There was also like another project made and released, like a short film that was like a prequel from 1901 or 1911, 1901. And then the second movie is like the amalgam of all the work that went into making the TV series. But imagine if that was like an 8th TV series of 22 or 24 episodes each, which was the norm at the time. We'd be going from 1914 all the way through to the 50s.
We would have got the Nazis, for sure.
Bro, for sure.
And ironically, the Nazis also ended up at Disney out of all those places.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they're like, we can't tell them. But that's like, imagine if it did get turned into a TV show, like that's where the property would go, where it's like, the manufacturing, like the destruction of World War I, where you had like Atlantis had just, in 1914, Atlantis had just rediscovered its own power. It just has a brand new queen. And then in the above ground, all of a sudden, the fucking Great War happens. And you have a bunch of people who are like trying to get into this underground place. Like that's where the second movie should be starting off. It's like, it's fucking World War I and they're all blowing each other up there. Let us in here to save us. And they have to fucking defend against like all of Earth's elite trying to protect themselves by taking over this underground world, like so much scope in that story. The story world was built so well that there's so much scope in it,
That said, the TV show that has planned Team Atlantis was actually going to have them going to other societies, finding other places, which is interesting, but they weren't necessarily going to, I guess just by, you'd have to take a few, get a little deeper, but yeah, they're going to make it like an adventure show. Even this movie, they're like, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of was their vibe.
I think they set the precedent in this movie. They let you know that we're not going to get a Disney Holocaust movie for 8,000 years. You got to wait 8,000 is like the proper amount of time before you can make a cartoon about an entire society being taken out.
We never get a confirmation if the Atlanteans with the white, they did have white hair, but were they circumcised? We didn't know. That's the thing.
That's the uncut version. Also the answer.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I got some, and I hate to just stick this thing where it doesn't belong constantly, but I got some strong Eeyore Bach vibes at the very beginning of this when Milo goes to see like his father's, like his friend from back in the day that eventually gives him the journal, right? But when he shows up, it's this old dude that looks exactly like Eeyore Bach doing yoga, and his pants fall down, and he shows this young dude his dick, and then it's like, okay, now let's go underground and find this hidden treasure that's been hidden for thousands of years. Is this not the Bach saga?
Apparently, him, that Mr. Whitmore and the granddad were not very well hidden gay lovers. It seems in this movie.
It wasn't just Whitmore. It was pressed in Whitemore. If you want to break down the, that's what the Bach does. So you've got pressed in Whitemore as Eeyore Bach. Anyways.
Pressed in Whitemore leave it in for a while, it goes pink more.
I was thinking
And then if it goes
location.
red more, take it out. But can you imagine like two old school college roommates? You're talking about
What the?
There's gestures you can do that evoke certain things. Although I've seen a few on yours. I don't get balloons. Okay.
what the fucking shit was that?
I've seen this. I've seen a few podcasts recently where people, earlier you do a thumbs up. We got like a thumbs up. We got it earlier. I saw it
What
earlier.
the fuck just happened there, man?
Never happened to me. Do I just?
I was just. What did they do there? What did they do to make the fucking gay balloons show off?
I guess talk with your hands and hopefully something will happen.
I'll do a Philip DeFranco here and the fucking balloons will show off. What the fuck happened there? Maybe
Bob
this.
Fosse, Jeff's hands.
Is it this?
Yeah, there we go.
We're gonna turn this into one of those shows where it's just like watermelon, hot dog.
Tastes so good. Spicy.
I'm sure the audio listeners are having a blast now, but the weird gestures that cause things to happen.
It doesn't work for me. I don't know.
What just happened there? I did this, and I wiggled my fingers, and a bunch of fucking rainbow balloons showed up. When there we go.
You go. You're the
What
balloon
the
man.
fuck? That is demented. So
Chad, I'm not getting them. Okay.
Above the fireplace there was like a picture of the two boys like this, and did you notice Mr. Whitmore said, if he was able to prove to me that this book exists, I was supposed to give him a big fat wet kiss on the mouth, and then he shows the picture of the two of them pretending to be disgusted about this kiss on the mouth or whatever. Like the two boys were definitely, on the DL, but just because it was, the 19th century, there were two owl lads, like you weren't allowed kind of let it happen.
Well, also, this was Atlantis related, so it was platonic.
Yeah, exactly, platonic relationship. But maybe, there was a reason that he was so emotionally attached to Milo, not because of his skill, which he chose all the other people in the team for their skill, despite their age or like racial division. Like at the time, would there have been like a hulking giant John Coffey sized black doctor on any sort of a expedition or a team like that? Is it not? Are we not talking about like
the movie Armageddon? No,
Massachusetts. No, I'm talking about 1914 fucking Massachusetts, bro.
That's a good
wherever
point.
Yeah.
They do kind of fill the whole spectrum, right? They've even got like the Latin, like young chick that's involved, and
a teenage, a Latinx teenage mechanic, and like and a weird, like dirty, weird French mole man. And usually the French dudes at those times were like very debonair and had the pencil mustache and were very good at sleeping the cocaine. And this lad was like a weird sex predator, like animalistic almost.
Confederate soldier in the mix.
Yeah, the relationship between Whitmore and the Granda, and you just saying like he was doing those weird contortions, and then the thing fell down and he showed him his dick, and he's like, "So what do you think?" And Milo's like, "All right, go on, I'm in." Like it's like casting couch shit, like
Well, he got away quickly. At least he went to not the ends of the earth, I guess the middle of the earth. But
yeah, 40,000 leagues under your jocks. But it just kind of said to me like there was more going on in that relationship. There's a reason that he was willing to take Milo on, and maybe it wasn't because of his linguistic skills. When you're speaking of sexual attraction, actually, I heard that the different characters were all designed based on the animator's sexual proclivities. So if you look at like the little Latina has like a weird butt and like small ditties, but a big like I can only describe it as like a big fuckable mouth. Do you know?
Arnold Schwarzenegger made that one, right? Athletic.
Yeah.
I'm not calling it this one.
Demure, sleazy. Let's be honest. Brunette, sleazy, demure. Do it, Simon. Do it slowly. It's seared into my memory. For some reason, Jamie Lee Curtis dancing in True Lies Jesus.
I
And
didn't remember the line, but I remember the scene. 15 when it came out. Yeah, 16.
yeah. I'm tearing myself asunder. Fair play to her. And when she fell off the pole that time, that was a total accident, and they kept it in the movie. She was, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
She had oil in her hands, and she slipped, and it was like, oh, there you go.
She's a national treasure for a reason.
Oh man, telling you, big time. Another great movie, Disney movie, National Treasure. There's a National Treasure tree where they're going to Atlantis for sure. It's totally there. Nicolas Cage is on possibly the tippy toppest form of his whole career so far. Like, where's National Treasure 3? So yeah, the animators made the different characters like sexually appealing in different ways. So everyone had like a very different style. I felt like Milo's style was very kind of very, very Hellboyish. The German one, she was that kind of, the one from Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail.
Yeah. Was she in Elsa? I don't remember. I definitely know you're talking about.
Elsa, I think her name. Yeah, the blondie one with like, the horse riding pants and the white shirt tucked in, kind of, but blonde hair tied back in a kind of a tight bun. She squeezed the cock off you, like that kind of like angry Germany bird.
I got a strong Officer Callahan from Police Academy.
Yes, sir.
Too, man.
Yes, sir. Absolutely fantastic reference.
So who's responsible for Moliere then?
But that's what I mean. Like some weird, some weird little French woman is just like, I love them small and round. Oh, I love him. But like apparently everyone had a weird sexual attractiveness in a weird way. I'm not talking about like sexualizing a children's cartoon, but like.
But as we said, it's barely a children's cartoon.
Yeah,
and two, the Callahan chick, like I said, like almost in every other shot we see her shoulders like constantly falling, and just the way that she speaks, some of the motions that she goes through is like she's like sexualizing just a normal military command, but like she goes through these weird sort of like over the top emotive gestures,
like the way they animated in Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit, where like she would actually like be doing like physically impossible contortions to remain as sexy as possible. Like all of these, the proportions were crazy, and her hips would, and her spine and everything, she'd fucking turn her body around like an owl or whatever. Weirdly animated. And then Kira as well, when she was like, getting into to go swim in the thing, and she took off the sarong, and she's wearing a little bikini, and Milo was like it was like a funny moment, and it had that kind of the energy that only Michael J. Fox can kind of bring to it, where it's like, yeah, we go for swimming, you're really good looking. I mean, we look really well for what we're looking for. Oh, Jesus.
At least you're not my mom this time.
Yeah. But like, your one from Atlantis is like, Calvin Klein? I know him. And Rourke was there going, I hate manure, or whatever, But everyone had a weird kind of sexy vibe to them. Like Sweet, the giant John Coffey, he killed them with their love balls. Very weirdly attractive, but very differently animated to everybody else. It felt like everything was mismeasured, and everybody, it was like it was animated by fucking 9 different people. And
I think that was almost like a really interesting way that if you describe that on paper, like, okay, every main character is going to have a different aesthetic. Some are going to have more details, some are going to have less, some are going to be more like rubber hosey animations, some are going to be more like Aeon Flux style. On paper, that sounds like, no, that's not going to work, but somehow they actually achieve like a consistent aesthetic, even though each individual character looks like it's owned by a completely different person. Like they all just kind of came together, and I haven't ever seen something with so many different styles that look cohesive like this in this kind of a movie.
Apparently, this movie did have like Paris, Florida, and California studios working at pretty much full tilt. Like, so that would address, you know, when you have people in Paris doing one thing, people in California doing another. Yeah, of course they're going to look different.
Yeah, they're pretty strict about the supervisors, like to keep the quality the same all the way through. Like especially with the Pixar stuff, as the years went on, that it was all, you know, pixel perfect, and a lot more cost effective because you weren't like, you know, hand drawn the cells or whatever.
Yeah,
And
we're
you could
coming to
also-
the end of the 2D, and I mean this one isn't even in 2D. It's got plenty of 3D elements too.
But it's all what's it called? Something plane.
Multi-plane
technology and all this kind of stuff.
And they did have a lot of trouble making the elements, the 2D and the 3D, like kind of fit together. So
I read that there was as the movie started being produced, and also like who were the two lads that made it? I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but the two boys that made it, Glenn something, they were acting the cunt basically and saying like, we need more money for this and more money for this, and if you just believe in us, like this will be the best thing ever. And Disney pulled the rug, pulled a bunch of money. Columbine happened. They cut a bunch of scenes. They tried to hobble it all together, and now the movie feels, what people say, the movie feels rushed. There's bits of it that don't make sense. There's parts of the character that have to be kind of like exposed very quickly, or else the emotional beats wouldn't hit as hard later on. And I think if we got the 2 hour, it was 1:24, I think the runtime is. If you had got the full 2 hour version from the original, with all the proper deaths, all the proper, you know, travel and stuff. Like, think about the fucking I thought of 2 examples when I was watching it to give for this show, right? One is, what the fucking fuck is with the balloons, man?
I'm so jealous.
You're not getting that shit.
No.
I'm gonna do something now, and there'll be like a gun that'll come in here and just be like, bang. Like, what the fuck? I was thinking of the Matrix trilogy, right? So like that could have been one big movie, but it wouldn't have had the third movie wouldn't have had the gravitas, and the second movie wouldn't have had the backlash about the fucking shit ending that everybody was like, we have to wait till next Christmas to find out what the fuck happens. Fuck you. Like, it was, you know, to flesh out Trinity, to make you care enough about her so that if she dies at the end or not, to show that Neo wasn't, what's a male version of a Mary Sue? I don't know whatever the male version of a Mary Sue is.
One.
Yeah, I think it is. I think they call it a Neo now, like this like inexplicably powerful being that kind of just like made up their mind one day that they had infinite power. That it's not. There's no reason for it. It's not like Superman gets it from our yellow sun, or, you know, you were born with it, or you have, you know, it's a mutation. It's just like somebody chose him. He got a red or a blue, and he chose, I'm going to fucking learn how to do this shit. And then all of a sudden he could just do it. It's this chosen one thing that you have to earn. And in the Matrix they did it backwards, where he was given it and didn't really know what he was doing, and then earned it later. I also thought of and how that movie was edited together. It should have been longer in some parts and shorter in other parts. The bit where they're all dealing with the Merovingian and all of the fucking, you know, werewolves and vampires and shit, like very clever, but like ultimately kind of fruitless. It's just to get the key maker out. And then the bits where they should have spent longer is like the relationship between the two of them. So like the way it was edited, they took as long as they fucking liked. The second movie was 2 hours long. The third movie was 2 hours long. And it could have been 25 minutes shorter each one, and still had the same emotional weight. But they let them make it because it was fucking making money, right? Another movie I thought of was Planes, Trains and Automobiles, which I just found out that John Hughes made. And there's 40 minutes of shit that's cut out of that would have made that a totally different movie. Have you heard of this theory?
Also, time traveling Jews in that one, I think.
It wasn't Thanksgiving they were trying to get home for. It was Hanukkah the whole time.
Plane, Trains, Automobiles and Time Machines was the original title.
Nice. Marty, something's going to be done about John Candy. So yeah, they fucking cut 40 minutes out of that, and there was loads of these set pieces that the ends of them were left in, you know, and things in the movie that kind of don't make a lot of sense when you watch it. If you know, like, you kind of accept it as it is, which we have to do in this film. We just have to accept that sometimes Milo and the gang are in a place and they're like, what the fuck? Or like, they get the powers and they're turning on the fucking flying things with their crystals, and it's like, you know, it is what it is. Take it, you know, take it as it is. But if you had the full aspect of what the writers and the producers intended in the first place, despite whatever kind of taste or whatever kind of you know, reluctance to offend that the world had in 2001 with this, you know, Disney's last fucking animated, you know, blockbuster. If they had actually made the real thing, imagine what we could have. All the TV series following through all the years, like, you know, the different attempts of trying to get into Atlantis by the likes of the Nazis and the occultists and, you know, whoever, different kind of factions. And what happens when the technology gets out to the wider world? Does it bring world peace? Is there fucking, you know, like, there's so much scope for that whole world that was built. I felt really sad about it, you know, that it didn't get the kudos that it deserved at the time, and that it was reduced to a sequel that was very, like, weekly,
straight to video.
yeah, it was like weekly received. And then you think of something like Tomorrowland, which is also a Disney movie about fucking Disney, really. Like, do you know Tomorrowland with the
yeah.
Clooney,
The idea of this, I was thinking the idea
George
of this
Clooney,
movie,
yeah.
actually, they'd last done, the directors had last done Hunchbacks. They're like, that's our Fantasyland movie. So they're like,
Yeah.
this is going to be our Adventureland movie.
I mean, I think that there really is something conspiratorial here. I don't know if it really happened, but there's a theory that's worth fleshing out, that Disney saw that this was getting far along. Maybe they didn't create Columbine just so that they could tank this movie, but what the end result was that this movie, Disney resuscitated this ancient concept of Atlantis just to sink it again, so that now if anyone looks into it, it's like, oh yeah, didn't Disney try and make a movie? They couldn't even make it interesting. Yeah, let's keep skipping over Atlantis. Let's go talk about Tartaria instead.
like that Fantastic Four movie that was made in 1994 over a weekend with a camcorder.
The original Punisher or the original Avengers or any of the original.
The original Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, is it? Is that one? Just to hold on to the. They made
I watched that a lot. I taped off cable. Watched
that was a fucking good movie. But the original Fantastic Four movie looks like a bad porno that's made with a camcorder where nobody fucks in. And they made it. They had to make it and release it because otherwise they would have lost the rights to keep it. And then the next movie came out. That was the one that was with Jessica Alba and all of those, and Chris Captain America. What's his name? Chris
Evans.
Chris Evans played Flame On, that guy or whatever.
The Flamer. That's his name.
Flamo. They had to make a shit one to keep the rights to it, but like purposefully sinking the notion of Atlantis, so that when anybody looks at it, they say, well, Atlantis is not a monetizable concept in any movie. I say Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, I was going to bring up there's a bit of controversy on plagiarizing. There's not quite a court case because nobody wants to sue Disney and deal with their lawyers. But Stargate. Milo looks a little bit like Daniel Jackson from that movie.
Exactly.
Stargate Atlantis. Yeah, that happened a few years later after this. So you got that. That is a very, of course, very sci-fi. Atlantis is off in space. I like that show. But yeah, it's different than what we're looking at here.
I feel like we also have to mention Avatar too, like this, because whenever Avatar comes up, someone brings up Fern Gully, and I always got that reference. But now after watching this one, it's 100% based on Atlantis, more so than Fern Gully, if either of those two. Because in Atlantis,
and Dances with Wolves.
What was it?
Avatar.
Yeah,
Dances with Wolves as well.
Yeah.
There's two animes as well. There's Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, which I have not
Yeah.
seen. That's a series, I guess.
I
Yeah,
saw
looks
the
like it's a
clip on
series.
About
YouTube.
Atlantis?
It's let's see. I
No,
haven't
it's
seen this one.
like thematically, like, you know, lost civilization, magical powers, and blah blah blah. Like, it's kind of just the aesthetic is lifted.
That's the one that came closest to actually being a plagiarism lawsuit. But again, NHK, National Japanese Television, didn't actually want to sue Disney and have to deal with that. The other one that comes up a little more as a thought experiment is Laputa, Castle in the Sky, which is a Miyazaki film, which is actually a pretty good one. But also features magic crystals, and I mean, they were just like, we like Miyazaki, but that wasn't like a lawsuit or a threat of one or anything. That's just an observation. But
Yeah, but it's something I think deeper in what would you say, the genetic memory of us, where we know there was an ancient civilization. I mean, we're not getting hand-cocky on this one, but like, you know, Younger Dryas, I think they mentioned it in this movie. They call it the Poo or something like that. There was some like, was this? Yeah, that's why it was such a. Was this before the Poo? Yes, the Great Flood, and that's the Younger Dryas event from 11,800 or 12,800
I
years
think
ago.
they give you a random like 6,800 years or something like that. But
yeah.
I guess you wouldn't even be saying like the 10,800 or whatever at this point in time. That'd be a few years later anyway. So,
well, I think they say that the cataclysm that destroyed Atlantis was like 6,000 years ago, but there's the Younger Dryas like destroyed the world essentially 12,000 years ago, like took out everybody, and Atlantis was survived it and became like a.
Oh yeah, because there's ideas of them having successive cataclysms, like 6,000, then all the way into even like Hellenic times. Could have been the final death blow or whatever.
Yeah, and when you look into like the what would you say, the academic research into Atlantis, that it is like an ancient civilization that was, as Graham Hancock says, and he was saying this with boxing with Flint Dibble and Joe Rogan, a hunter-gatherer primitive civilization that was coming out of hunter-gatherer stuff that were inexplicably jumped ahead with a whole bunch of knowledge about, like, you know, farming and technology, and like this inexplicable leap in quality of life and technology and you know, animal husbandry and all this kind of shit, you know, that there were it was a displaced advanced civilization that were displaced, and they went to a place that did survive, or that wasn't like wiped out by the cataclysm, and they just had all that shit in their head, and they're like, well, this is all we could fucking carry. We have what we have. Here, let's show you how to do this. Did you ever see a fulcrum? Did you ever see a fucking, you know, if you dig down the thing, there's water under there, you can build a well. Do you know, you know how to make fire? We rub this off this and fucking, so there's all these different theories about how that technology, or how that civilization that was, you know, Atlantis, which is the fucking the coverall for this like Tartarian nation, this lost civilization that no one's allowed to talk about. Like, it makes fucking sense when you think about it in that Atlantis, general Atlantis term, that there was an ancient civilization, there was this place, they found these hunter-gatherers, they Prometheused them and showed them this stuff, and then humanity like evolved very rapidly. So like in the last 12,000 years, there was dark ages, there was, you know, famines, there was pestilence, there was, you know, dictators, and your Genghis Khans and your Alexander the Greats and your Napoleons and shit like that. And then you have the last 100 years, which has been like technological advancements that are, you know, inexplicably quick. Who's doing that? Do you know? So like, to find an ancient technology or an ancient culture under the ground that would explain all of that stuff, people are absolutely bricked up waiting to know, when are the aliens coming? When are we going to find out what's actually happening? Are we really close to knowing that there's an ancient civilization? When is the proof coming out? When are they going to fucking be honest and let us know? And there's lads from 200 years ago saying like, this is the crack. Here's the books. if you do the magic, if you do the magic, what they call magic, if you call them up on the phone, these lads will answer you. They talk in a different language. You guys are all being subjected to a lower form of humanity or a lower form of existence on your earthly plane, in your realm. So like, do the work and you'll see the fucking results. And we're all going to work and pay taxes, get someone to suck my dick, get a nice new telly, like, and they're not doing the thing they're supposed to do.
That seems like a segue to your bacon notes.
Well, I actually wanted to note that we'll have streaming down here, but 1-900 Atlantean at $3.99 a minute, you'll actually be able to get all these different Atlantean advanced knowledge directly from the source, but that's going to be for a limited time only.
Sexy
down here.
voice.
Yeah, and so
I'm just saying, maybe that was a load of shit, but like, I feel that that's in the zeitgeist at the moment, that people are waiting for this thing to drop. Somebody's going to come, they're going to find a book, they're going to find something. Like, I saw a thing the other day, and it was like the Great Wall of China. The fucking defensive parts of the Great Wall of China are pointing like into China, not out. If it was a wall to defend China, all the fucking parapets would be facing outwards. They would be fighting off the Mongols. No, sir. The Great Wall of China points in towards the people in China, so it's a fucking wall to keep them in. And when you look at the old maps of Tartaria, they're fucking outside of China. So the whole wall is built to stop the Chinese attacking old Tartaria. And I'm like, that makes total sense. Why would they build it like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's this kind of shit that's fucking melting my... I have an episode coming up on Tartaria and all that stuff. And
do you think there's even a small chance that whoever started building it, they didn't realize until afterwards that they had the IKEA directions upside down or something?
Like, oh no, what the fuck we do? Oh no.
YouTube keeps suggesting me watch the 10 biggest architectural mistakes of all time. The main one being a two-tiered skyscraper where like it's slightly off.
And they call it art.
and we've been being prepped for this for more than just recent, because I had to dig out this book that I could have sworn talked about Atlantis, but it's called The Secret Doctrine of America by Manly Palmer Hall. And in this book, there's a whole section called like the Secret Society or the New Secret Society of America or something. But he's citing a book by Francis Bacon called New Atlantis. And Francis Bacon, through the interpretation of Manly Palmer Hall, he's ascribing it that this new Atlantean civilization can exist, but it can only exist if the secret societies are the ones that rule it. So that America was sort of identified as the one place that you could send all these secret societies to and start trying to build towards this new Atlantean ideal. And then now we've got the internet and internet porn.
Maybe that's the ultimate goal of Atlantis. Yeah.
What does Manly P. Hall say about Atlantis, though? That's the thing.
Well, I think he makes a good case that America in particular is the new Atlantis, indeed, and that
exactly.
That this is going to be where you can foster knowledge, and I think there is a strong case to be made that America did start to offer one of those weird quantum leap sort of petri dishes, where now all of a sudden you've got people collaborating in ways that didn't exist before, and then we get these huge and the Roswell alien crashes, but we just kind of gloss over that part.
There are things happening now, like conspiracy guys would say that 100 years ago, what people would view as magic, we now know today to be science. Things that they had as ghosts and ghouls and spirits and demons and possession and the devil's work is like germs and bacteria and psychological maladies,
The Arthur C. Clarke, right? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Exactly. So the things that we see in this movie where there's, floating crystals with like big stone heads and all this kind of stuff, where they're able to have like a rock and you put it into the fucking motorbike and you go, and you start and you push your hand on it. Like if you were to show somebody from 1914 a fucking self-driving car, self-driving Uber, even like a mobile phone, it's like, oh, hello, English. What kind of devil's mirror have you got there? it's a black glass of Satan. Like it's, you know,
It's a monolith.
but exactly, it's a portal into something. And if you think of the consciousness as like your true self rather than your corporeal form, really, like, to anybody outside of you looking, what difference is this? Now, sorry for the audio only listeners, but what difference is this? Where you're completely vacant on the outside, and your full consciousness, all your thoughts, memories, like personality, is being projected from your own like imagination of yourself through a portal into possibly multiple other worlds, interacting with other consciousnesses indirectly through a digital space. And all people can see from the outside is, and what's the difference between that and like the traditional, you know, eyes rolling back in the head and the mouth open and the fucking, you know, the spiritualism of the late 19th century where people were like being possessed and going, having a seance or whatever.
Well, and staring at a candle until you don't see anything but the candle, and then you stop seeing the candle. It's the same thing with the phone. Like once you, and it's so much faster, right? Like the candle, you have to train yourself to ignore the outside world. With a phone, within 5 seconds, the outside world ceases to exist.
Because the phone fucking pushes back, bro. You have to train yourself to get the candle to push back. You have to train yourself to see and feel the candle push back. But the phone does the work for you. That's why it's so easy. And that's why it's so addictive. Because the work is gone from it. They found out what we need and they just give it to us. So like if it's free, you're the product and what have you, right? So we say like the conspiracy people are saying like
so did Carl Sagan, the demon haunted world.
yeah, like these technologies they seem like magic, you know. Or you have that old thing of like, you know, the Native American Indian, and your man takes his picture and he's like, "Oh, you have put my soul into that electric box." You know, that they believe that shit, like, right? So when they show that stuff, that fucking turn the crystal, start the car with your hand, if you show somebody a fucking Tesla, where you can go like and press the thing on the app and it fucking starts up and drives up to you and opens the door and you get in it. You don't even have to touch the wheels. It's like a horseless wagon that pilots itself. Well, it has a ghost for a driver. Like this is like, it seems bananas. So there's like things that are happening now that are being drip fed. And I know, like, there's people here, maybe they're not. I saw the video where your man was attacking you and saying, "Oh, you fucking fat bally bastard," and all, and fuck you, you don't know that. And that was a very funny.
Yeah, we don't
video.
like fat bald bastards on this show.
Oh, what a funny cunt that lad was. Like, what a fucking toucher, right? But like, he was saying stuff, and I was reading the comments and stuff like that. Like, you know, in masonry or in any of these, like, you know, people call them cults, people call them like ancient orders. There's knowledges that are being passed around. There's things that people are being told that are not really for public consumption because most of the public wouldn't believe, number one, and wouldn't be able to utilize them in a responsible or even in a realistic way, number two, right?
Pearls before swine.
Huh?
Pearls before swine, to make it
exactly.
like a biblical reference.
So you're not allowed, you're kind of not allowed to, not because you're not allowed, but because it's probably better. It's like, you know, knives are really good for cutting stuff, but like you wouldn't give it to a child because the child wouldn't be able to cut the stuff as well as you want, and it might hurt itself with that knife. Do you know what I mean? So it's like better safe than sorry, right? And the way that this information is being disseminated now, like through the likes of CERN and these new discoveries, like there's stuff being drip fed to us the whole time, like UAPs are real and aliens are real and there might be demons, and the Miami Mall, they showed these fucking interdimensional beings, and you know, people are getting recordings of mad shit. Like what was that? The 9 foot, was that in Florida? The 9 foot aliens, or was that somewhere else?
Miami Mall aliens?
No, they appeared in the garden somewhere, and the guys got them on camera, you know. Who's to say these Atlanteans are like humanoid and good looking and have like white hair and brown skin and look kind of like Storm from the X-Men, like Halle Berry with lovely ditties. Who's to say that they're not like 9-foot interdimensional beings, that Atlantis wasn't really like a place of land at all, and that there are other things that live in our realm that we don't and can't interact with because we don't have the knowledge nor the inclination. And if we do, by looking into the candle, that they will talk to us in a language and give us information that we won't be able to handle, so that we don't even bother anymore. Like it takes practice. I presume, Matt, that you speak Japanese, right?
I read it better. Speak a little bit, not much. Yeah, but I'm not like fluent in it, unfortunately.
But you could get around. You could practice. You can ask for. You could order in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So you do your bit. I'm the same in Russian. Like, you get along when you're living in the country. But I'm saying, imagine if you had nothing, how difficult it would be to communicate with everybody. And how
my first year, I couldn't read any of the symbols, right? So my second year, I went home, and on the plane, like, I actually managed to memorize the basic symbols. And yeah, that opened up, like, even now I'm just like, I'll walk around and well, Thomas told me doing this before when I was like trying to read the anime thing that I took my daughter to, and I'm sitting there saying it in a weird way, because I'm reading the symbols, even though it's actually
phonetically, like,
I'm reading Donaldo. Oh, Donald. Okay.
Donald. As an American, I assume that if I went to Japan, even if I didn't know the language, if I just get belligerent and loud, that would, like, the people would start, spontaneously understanding me, because that's usually how the American language works.
I actually got a term for that among the expats here, which is a gaijin smashing. Like Hawk Smash.
What is it?
Gaijin smash. Like Hawk Smash. Like, sometimes you're in a situation like, it's not going to work, but I can kind of like bullhead my way through it because I'm not Japanese. They call it.
They give you that grace.
Lean into the fact that they're already assumed that you're going to be a little bit crude and American.
You just lean into it, yeah. You just lean into it because you want something to happen.
Man, I'm all about that's as American as hell.
I very rarely do that, but yeah. Every once in a while, there's a situation where it helps.
There's probably stories about you don't even know, like, oh, he got so American.
Yeah. One of my we have all the hot springs, so and people don't want to have confrontation in Japan. So I was talking about the hot springs earlier, and my friend and I always are joking about what would happen if you were sitting with a bunch of the Oji-san, the old men, kind of get up. You've left like a giant turd behind you. It's like, oh, see what's in, and just walk away. Like it's possible nobody would do anything. Haven't done that one. Did not shit in the bath, but
can you just cut in line perpetually in Japan and no one has any recourse for it?
If you're an old man, you might be able to. That's a different one where the bitter old man can kind of get away with that, but I doubt I could.
I mean, you should try it and see. Maybe they'll capitulate. They'll be like, their politeness would overtake.
Well, and sometimes you find yourself, you're not being racist at all, but it sounds like you are. The example that keeps coming up on a podcast I do with a friend that's here is that also living in Japan. But it's like you're at a hamburger place. It's like, oh, you want a double cheeseburger? Okay, I'll order it for you. A double cheeseburger, onegaishimasu. Like, but you have to order it that way, or if you say double cheeseburger, they will not understand you. You have to use the. So
you have to be kind of a little bit kind of racist in your.
It sounds like you are, but you're actually just being understood because.
So if you walked around there, it's kind of like sometimes when I'm, and I mean, I know there'll be quite a lot of Americans listening to this, but I do find of all the English-speaking countries, Americans are less willing to change how they hear things to understand them.
Is you got a practical example here?
Like if I was to talk in my hometown accent at the speed that I usually talk with the inflections in the accent that I have. You know what I mean? I'm talking like that, like I'm talking like Wexford people, and anyone that's from Wexford will be able to understand what I'm saying now, right? But like the way it's going up and down, like it's not normal, like for American people to be hearing that, and the way that the words run into one another, you wouldn't be able to hear them. Not really pronouncing every consonant, like, you know what I mean? Like that's how the people in my town sound like when they're talking like that, like, you know what I mean? You wouldn't hear it, like. Did you get any of that?
Yeah.
I had to think about it, but yeah.
Yeah,
I got
but
it.
you have to really fucking, you have to tune in, man. You're like, yeah. Every syllable
Right.
has to be right. You can't just hear it. And
If I heard like a siren go by as you were talking, it's all over. Like I've lost the thread.
yeah. But like, so people would adjust themselves. So if you were there, I found like when you're talking to people who don't have English as a native language or as a an understood language, second language, that you do have to enunciate everything and go a little bit slower. But sometimes it helps to also kind of do their act, like say it in the way that they say it. Like, so if you're in Japan, to talk like they do talk to get the cheeseburger.
Well, you don't want
that's what they expect
English,
to hear.
Yeah.
I need this DLC. I need whatever DLC it is that whenever I listen to those Conspiracy Guys podcast, I can like enable the Russian or the Japanese accent version of all these.
Yeah. Dude, the Jamaican thing and all, like if you're listening to Jamaican people talking, they're really talking English mostly, but you just have to go like,
have you ever seen that CNN has a version of Pigeon for their homepage? And it's like it's the coolest thing to read. It's the only time I go to CNN now. I have to go through the Pigeon version of CNN.
I didn't know about that.
There's a Snoop Dogg plugin that you can get for Chrome that turns the whole internet into like how Snoop Dogg would talk, and it's like it's very, very fun. Like every website turns into that. It translates the whole thing,
CNN Dizzle.
So here's one of the titles on the CNN, or this is the BBC Pigeon homepage. Who be actor Sabing Way Die? Like it's like what they're saying, and I probably didn't get the accent right, but it's imagine having to say speak that way just for people to communicate with you effectively. Yeah, it sounds racist as hell.
and especially if you put a bit of stank behind it, you'd be like,
roll those R's
you can do that and learn to talk like this. But Pidgin is actually an amalgam of a load of different languages so that people in African countries can communicate. It's kind of like an Esperanto that like they were able to speak.
Way cooler than Esperanto. Way cooler.
Yeah, obviously. But they're able to speak amongst one another and then have their own native kind of language as well,
I mean, I'm from Atlanta, not Atlantis, but you go out of the city not far. I remember going on road trips. It was Tennessee. We go by a road stop, and there's two guys working on a vending machine talking to each other. I just turned to my friend, do you understand anything they're saying? He's like, no. I mean, that we know that's English, but that's completely
some boomhauer shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, hey, man, you want to buy some of these crystals out here? So I got that vending machine that's selling crystals out here. I know you had them in Japan.
My UK coworker, he has to use American pronunciations for teaching kids because that's what they teach in Japan. So he can't actually use, his hot fuzz English. That's his hometown.
So that's what I'm saying. The way people say things, you have to fucking tune your mouth sometimes because they're not willing to tune their ear. But the point that I was laboring there and getting onto was that there are technologies that are being showcased now and being kind of let out, let's say, or being like publicized or being told like this is how it really is. And more the esoteric is coming in, more and more like what we call like witchcraft, magic, this future technology, as you said, is indistinguishable from magic. And like stuff like portals and all of this that are featured in the Stargate Atlantis TV show. You have stuff like in this movie, you're being subsumed into this crystal technology and turned into some kind of being of light, like Dr. Manhattan or whatever. In Dublin this week, they erected what's being called the portal, and it corresponds with a portal that's in Times Square.
I was looking it up right as you started saying that.
Fucking weird as shit, man, right?
Isn't it like 8 feet tall or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fucking huge. It's just like a big Skype, like really. Like it's just a big fucking screen, right? And they put the portal in Times Square, which is I mean, for New Yorkers, it's kind of like that doesn't represent us at all. It's a tourist trap. It's a load of fucking bullshit, load of signs.
But it is the version of America that I would prefer every other nation see up close and in real time. Like, what better way to get a sampling of how people are in America? You need the hyperbole so that they understand the nuance.
Well, the opposite portal to that is not the way Ireland should be represented, I feel, as an Irish person and a person who used to live in Dublin for many, many years, because they put it on the fucking scrotiest street where all the fucking junkies hang out and shit and piss. Like
really,
when you see
a portal for junkies.
just to be like,
I couldn't find an actual name for the portal, but I did see a comment here which is worth reading, which says someone on shrooms is going to think they can run to Ireland and they're going to have a bad time.
Well, there's lads out there shitting on the streets and wiping their ass with their sock and then putting the sock into the shit like a chocolate flake into a summer ice cream. Do you know? You're looking at shit on the ground the way they have in San Francisco. And it used to be you'd see a shit on the ground and go, oh, someone didn't pick up after their dog. And now you're looking at it going, dogs don't eat sweet corn. What the fuck is that? Like, there's a lot of fucking terrible shit, right, on this particular place. Load of, scrotes. Load of antisocial behavior. Load of street drinkers and drug takers and shit smearers and not great, not nice people. But it's also in the very, very center of the most touristy part of Ireland, which is like Talbot Street, O'Connell Street, where all the people get dropped off at the bus, and the bus driver is like, "Is this the center of Dublin?" And they're like, "It is. Good luck," which is a way to say goodbye in Irish. They say "good luck," which is much more realistic than saying "have a nice day now." They're kind of saying "good luck." Don't get fucking mugged on your way to the souvenir shop, So, such a weird thing though that I felt at the moment, without getting into politics. I know we're talking about Atlantis, but it's that kind of technology that has been removed from our society that I think is being slowly reintroduced, or at least the elements of it. At the moment now, Ireland is going through like an open borders immigration crisis, where the government are being like really heavily criticized for their seemingly World Economic Forum / European Union sympathetic open borders. And there's a lot of people who are calling themselves Irish patriots that are being called by the media as far right, bigots and racists, right? And the mainstream media and the government want those people to capitulate and allow all of these, some undocumented, some single man, military age, blah, blah, blah. The same story is going on in America, right? And I just think it's kind of a bit weird because the Irish people themselves are pushing back. There's small villages all over the country that are getting an influx of hundreds of, various flavors of nationalities of refugees and immigrants being planted in their towns, in these small Irish towns, right? And I was just thinking, if you were a dark magician working on a global scale and you were so close to having a country represent what you wanted to have, which would be like complete social control. So we had a referendum in our country a little while ago there, and they were wanting to take the word woman and the word mother out of the constitution because they wanted to change how the unit of the family was seen. And it was a massive vote of fuck off, basically. Huge turnout. They didn't expect it at all. All of the governmental parties all came together to say, we support this change for progressiveness or whatever, right? And the whole country said, no fucking way. And then the whole government had to go like, gah! And our prime minister, to come to Taoiseach, he resigned quickly afterwards. In Scotland, they implemented this hate speech bill, which is basically, if you say something I don't like, I can report it. Oh, is my camera gone?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
My battery got exhausted. That's the fucking feds, man. You start talking about this shit, and that's the feds. Hold on a fucking minute.
Irish feds. I was just having one thought about the technology, though, that not using the old timey language, but I don't understand how a self-driving car works. So, like I don't know the science or the mechanics of that any more than we're not much more than a person from 1914. I simply, have heard about them more and have seen videos. And in Japan, I haven't even seen one in live. So.
I was wondering, even when they start up the cars in the Atlantis movie, and you have to put the crystal in, you have to have your hand on it, and you like turn it, whatever. But Milo doesn't really understand how that works because he's never seen it before, and Kita doesn't know how it works because she's never been able to figure out how it turns on. But I don't really believe in just free energy. Like, you're always giving up something. So when they're turning that car on, like, is that using life force? Like, could that have kept somebody alive, but now they used it to drive around in a little car? Or it could even be like on like a silly level, but when she turns that, like, they just spent Bitcoin. Like, she just spent like a full Bitcoin in order to turn that little thing on, and no one even knows about it because they're all discovering it for the first time, because even the ancient Atlantean technology was lost to the Atlanteans themselves.
I'm thinking, I mean, we use some crystals. Your watches have crystals to keep time, right?
But there's not magic. It's not a magical crystal. It's
acoustic electric guitars, right? Have piezoelectric. So, I'm just thinking about stuff like that, which, again, I don't really understand, but I'm like, is there a way that builds up and it's not magic? It's now just where you're now using the energy very efficiently, right? In this old technology. So for me watching this movie, I never really thought magic. I was like, it's this crystal technology, and just no one is in this movie is able to describe it. Maybe Spock, but he got stabbed or whatever.
Well, but they do describe that it converts emotion into life force, whatever the life force means. But apparently their life force also can start up motorcycles.
Right. Yeah. They do mention the emotion. So, I mean, I guess my point is, like, I didn't feel like I have to call them magic crystals so much as something that might have an explanation. So,
well, and there's even cooler than the magic crystals in my, because if anything, I sort of dislike the magic crystal reveal at the end of this movie, because they take what seems like this far advanced, but let's just say, granted, we're just too dumb to call it the technology it is, and they don't know exactly how it works. The coolest part to me is when they show this, like, the volcano erupts, and it's starting to just like fire off a bunch of little, like, heat-seeking missiles almost at this Atlantis, and these huge golem Nephilim creatures come up from the ground, and they clap, and you see the sound wave convert from like frequencies from the vibration into this weird force field thing. And that's kind of what I was really disappointed about. This never really launched, because, man, what an awesome startup of, like, now we've got golems, we've got Nephilim, we've got these huge, like, homunculus things that can create this huge little firmament, and you've got Milo staying back behind, and they almost set it up like, oh, they're lost, all these people are lost. Even the blonde chick, right? Even Callahan, which I'm going to call her that from now on, but even Officer Callahan in this movie, she's not necessarily gone or dead.
Ain't right, that right. About a bitch?
Did she just add another battery and it died?
That's fucking, it's crazy, man. The minute they start talking about some shit, that has never happened. I've streamed for 6 hours with this camera. That is
cuckoo bananas, voice, so that's good.
You what?
They can't stop your voice.
They can't until wait, you see the fucking microphone
until that happens. Yeah, I shouldn't try and jinx it. That might be a good point if you have another note or two on your sheet.
I've got there's a statement that they make in here, and I just want to throw out that the Disney proxy is back in action in this movie in less than 2 minutes. We see less than 2 minutes in, Kita's mom gets sucked up into the ball of energy and dies, basically, because she never comes back out after 8,000 years. So she's basically dead. So Kita's left somewhat as an orphan in this context. I mean, she's got her dad, but the dad has kind of been checked out because he just stays in his little ivory tower and like worries about Kida the entire time. But there was this phrase that they came out with this, and I think we spoke about this in one of the previous like dinosaur movies. But the quote was, if you gave back every artifact in the museum, you would be left with an empty building. And I still wonder, is like, do museums have merit in that you assume that everything there is kind of not supposed to be there and that eventually they'll all go? And also, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but the concept that museums that we talk about, even the Louvre, right, that they might just be like the goodwill of the archaeological world. Like, that's not even where all the cool stuff's at. That's where all of like the things that if you have like a petting zoo, right? The petting zoo, it's usually not like the nicest part of the zoo because it's where all the kids are allowed to go and like get their grubby hands all over everything. And that's kind of what museums are. It's like, here's the things that we're willing to put in front of the normies they can sneeze on.
As far as history museums, I assume we're getting good art in an art museum, but
maybe. I mean,
well, I guess you're not hearing the best music because it's not famous, and you're not seeing the best painting because it didn't get seen much.
Well, and if you go for the Gustave Le Bon crowd mentality, then no one would appreciate the highest form. You'd have to always be catering to the lowest common denominator, even like the fanciest, coolest artwork that you've ever seen. If it's in MoMA or something, then there's, it's already been lowered down to the masses. So if you get impressed by it, that's because you're a rube.
Well, I just had a musical. None of us liked this guy, but I ended up watching like 5 of his videos, which is a guitarist named Derek Bailey. He was playing in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I think. But you can find him on YouTube. But when you watch him, it looks like he can't play. So I pissed off one of my friends. I was showing him the video. And he's like, oh, yeah, I used to run a music store. But the thing is, you can't recreate what he's doing. I don't really want to recreate what he's doing either. But what he's doing is actually technically difficult. But it sounds like garbage.
Oh, God. I may get hate for this one, but it sounds almost like Dream Theater. Like everyone's been to Juilliard. They can all do like theoretical physics on the guitar. And it might be really impressive, but I don't know. I don't hear it. Sorry.
Oh, this is way past Dream Theater. You have to look up Derek Bailey, and I mean, it's like. But then I like Sun Ra. Sun Ra does free jazz. I don't know.
Don't you dare say a damn thing about Sun Ra. Nuclear war.
Yeah, I love Sun Ra. That's my thing. But his album Atlantis. Anyone hear that?
Man, what a great reference here. Yeah, I'm ashamed that I didn't get to bring up Sun Ra on this Atlantis episode.
Yeah, but it's 20-minute track. First 5 minutes just him doing pings on a electric piano or whatever, and then it just goes into 10 minutes of insane free jazz, which I guess is the destruction of Atlantis. I don't know, but that's very abstract music I do like. But then there's this other abstract music I don't like, and both are technically difficult. So where did I get into that conversation? Anyway, Sun Ra Atlantis. I backed this into a good corner in the end.
I got a camera working, but that was very strange that happened.
That looks like your NPR shot now. Okay.
Yeah.
Slightly askew.
Well, I was reading that it does enhance engagement when you do multiple camera angles in one stream. So we might actually be able to see an uptick from this.
Let's see what happens. I feel a bit tick. That was really annoying because that has never happened before. And maybe it was, the universe letting me off with talking about that thing because you're not supposed to talk about it because the whole country is going mad about it here. But anyway, my point was, sorry to disregard what you were talking about and finish my own point, which is very neurodivergent and selfish of me. But what I was saying was, there's a lot of people here dealing with a lot of the same things that people in America are dealing with now conceptually. Ireland has been very much a country of subjugation, ideologically, religiously, legally, geographically, owned by Vikings and Normans and Celts and the British, and now culturally and sociologically, ideologically, possibly politically, by half by Europe and half by America. Culturally by America and politically by the European Union, and by extension, the World Economic Forum kind of thing. If we're talking conspiracy stuff, like, so the supplantation of a lot of people who are immigrating, who are leaving a failing society, not dissimilar to Atlantis, sinking into the sea. They're looking for somewhere to go, and people are going like, well, don't go there. Well, don't go here. I think there's a portal that's opening up in Dublin City and a portal that's opening up in New York City. And I've never heard tell of it. I've never heard anything like it before. And I wonder, is this some sort of a dark magic ritual to pour the energy from one of America's most liberal and, like, I guess, historically politically violent cities, to pour all that energy through this portal into Dublin, the capital of Ireland, into Irish society, like directly, magically through this portal. That's the first thing I thought about when I saw that they were putting this shit up in the middle of the city. I was like, why call it a portal? Why build it like a Stargate? Do you know? If it's just some weird little touristy thing and people are just like waving to it, or like having a few drinks and pulling out their dicks at nighttime or whatever, yeah, cool, fun. It's all good. It's all good fun. But like, it's not St. Patrick's Day. It's not, a year of remembrance. Like, it's not a centenary or a bicentenary. There's nothing going on in New York that we want them to attach to Ireland in any real kind of anniversary type of way. It's just on a random day in May, they just fucking built this thing. But it just happens to coincide with a time when Ireland is in this like crazy, tumultuous political situation where the government are going to get fucked out in about 3 or 4 weeks' time when there's a general election. And they put up a giant portal in the middle of the city, which is going to be the place where the most votes are going to be cast. And I just think, like, isn't that a funny little, weird little magic thing? If it is indeed dark magic, or if it is indeed, like, that's its intention, because it's all about intention. Like, what do you guys think about that?
Is it only New York, or does it like cycle around through all the different cities? Or are you like assigned a sister city?
It's only one in Times Square, bro, for no reason. And I don't know who
I heard about this portal project, but I thought that the portal project was supposed to have a portal in like 20 different cities all across the world. But I don't know if if it cycles or if it's just one in one.
I have no idea, but I know now it's only Dublin and New York right now.
There are stone portals without screens or connection, but like Nagano City has a stone portal as an art installation. You can walk through it if you want. I have a picture of me walking through it, I believe. But yeah, again, my UK buddy says in my town there's a very similar one. So he was joking, next time I'm home, I'll shoot one picture there and shoot a picture in Japan. But then they're putting up these similarly looking portals in completely different places as art installations.
Here we go. I've got a screen up here. So we've got one in we've got the Lublin. I didn't even know Lublin was a place, but we've got Lublin in Poland. We've got one in Lithuania. We've got one in New York City, and then it says announcing soon that there's supposed to be a bunch of other ones coming up.
Oh, okay. So.
But apparently it just went live like this week, like one day ago. All these different news articles are starting to pop up about the one that connects New York City to Dublin, which is the only one that's live right now. But at a certain point, there's supposed to be a bunch of them.
Huh.
Yeah, I wonder what that's about. Like, it seems very kind of, CERN type of, the opening ceremony at CERN, where there was like loads of goats and fucking demons and all sorts of shit, like doing these dances and loads of like dead bodies and shit, like, and they're all, dressed in like rags and bandages, and they were hitting themselves, and the smoke was coming up, and it was a very pagan looking ceremony for the opening of some tunnel in Switzerland, and another one for CERN, and another one for some other fucking thing. Very beautiful, weird.
Original murals for the Denver International Airport.
Yeah, or for the London Olympics, that did this really weird thing where there was like a giant puppet effigy of death looming over hundreds of like hospital beds, and all the nurses were dancing and doing all these things. Like, did you see that shit? And it was like they'd say that it was
not the fun TikTok nurse dance where people were dying in the background. This is like a creepy version.
It was a prequel to it, because it was 2012, and maybe it was like The other way, you have to do like a spell of intention, or you have to do like
a revelation of the method. It's like, hey, in 10 years from now, you're going to be dying in these rooms, and you're going to see the nurses dancing out in the hallway.
And that's literally what the whole thing like manifests itself. So people are looking back at that and they're going, "What was the other thing it said? What was the other fucking thing it said?" So like having a portal in the city seems I'm getting red flags. I'm just feeling like, ooh, yucky. That's a bit weird to be allowing.
If it connected like San Francisco or Santa Cruz to Dublin, then I would say you might be onto something. New York, you're just going to see unlicensed Disney characters doing like horrendous things, and I almost feel like if they're both in sort of seedy areas, at least at nighttime, there's going to be this like upping the ante, like, oh, you think that's disgusting and horrible,
yeah,
and then
it's already happening. It's already happening. But I just mean like there'll be just loads of dudes going, "Hey man, buy my CD. It's like $5. My email, my Instagram is written on. I signed it for you, bro. Just hold it. Just take it in your hand. You don't have to give me no money. Just donate, whatever." But like, it just feels a bit, when you're talking about that kind of thing, that's happening right now. I don't know. It just feels adjacent to this Atlantis thing, like an escaping civilization. They're talking about like Tir na Nog being Atlantis. The Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth. High Brazil is another one from old Irish folklore that they think it's just off the west coast, like, and out in the sea. High Brazil, so HYBRESEL. And that's supposed to be what Atlantis is. There's like a continental shelf off the coast of New Zealand that could have been the old Atlantis in that cool tempered western margin type of Lord of the Ringsy, type of a place where Atlantis could have been. And I just feel like, why Dublin and why New York? Like, it's a weird fucking thing to have 3 weeks before a general election. And when you're talking about transference of energies or magical technologies like crystals and like the crystal feeding on the emotions. Like when I was trying to fix the camera, I heard you saying that when they plug in the crystal and they turn on the motorbike, there's someone like, "Oh, geez, I feel really bad. Actually, I'm a bit depressed." Like they're paying for it.
I can't feel joy anymore. What happened to it?
But like, how far are we away from that? Being able to, instead of going to work and manually moving your hands and moving the cogs and wheels of a machine, where you're able to plug in your consciousness and allow like your electric porridge to be able to be used as some sort of an organic processor for a machine that, I don't know, decodes the fucking like does what a Bitcoin miner computer does, but they're doing it with your own like biomechanical brain matter, right? Like, how much would you get paid to plug all those shits into your brain and let them use your brain for like 6 or 8 hours a day, where you're like, nah, or they put you into a coma and you get the fucking, and you wake up and you're wrecked because you're after using a load of calories in your brain electricity to fucking mine some cryptocurrency or whatever.
We're back at the Matrix now.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like those crystals are what are they feeding off of? Like, if they're feeding off your emotions, it's going back into the types of stories of other realm beings like archons, which feed off our emotions, and they're able to, exist in the same space as us, but just on a different plane. They can't ever have a corporeal form. Like, are they the Atlanteans? Like, are we talking about ghosts that are thousands of years old? I'm getting a bit like crazy. I just smoked too much of a joint, and it's getting a bit conspiracy theory maybe for Occult Disney podcast. But like,
well, but imagine if that was true, and that this crystal can absorb emotions and convert that into energy and life force. Yeah. Imagine if they really were able to harness that and bring it to America. I feel like Americans have way more like emotions to loosh, transduce.
The loosh. That's what exactly.
The Atlanteans were like way too zen and peaceful. Like, if this thing really kicks in the overdrive based on emotion, get this thing into some internet fights, put this thing in the middle of like a debate, and on like a January 6th type of event. Like, put Atlantean crystal inside January 6th, you get free energy for the rest of eternity.
Exactly. You're powering a fucking a whole New Year's Eve celebration, on on some TV stations, like all the electricity and all the stuff. You're powering a whole city for a year, based off of a Jordan Peterson and Destiny YouTube video. Arguing off each other, like
a Kendrick and a Drake beef. It just like
exactly
the next year of energy independence.
So who's to say, right, that the Atlanteans didn't survive? They took over, and they do run everything off these off the emotional currency of the human race, be it sorrow, be it anger. They try to do it like Monsters Inc. They try to do it off of love, but like love doesn't get you as much batteries. Like screams, laughs get you more batteries full than screams. So maybe hate and division and all that stuff. War gets you more power.
And Monsters Inc. is like 2 movies down the line, so it's in very close proximity to this one.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same. It's the same loosh, as you said, like the same kind of feeding off the energies of other people in a vampiric way. That seems to be a theme that happens again and again and again, and more so now we see it because like we're all connected way more than in 2001. Like we can all. There's outrage and new outrage every day. Whereas before, the thing had to happen. It had to go into the papers. After the papers, it went to the news stations. And then maybe 6 or 8 weeks later, you're looking at like maybe like a panorama documentary or something. Some journalist has taken it and ran with like Katie Couric or fucking, what was Ron's name with the fucking scally, cunty fucking way of going on, asking really shitty questions, being a big cunt. Barbara Walters. And she'd get somebody and she'd be like, so what was it like? What was it like to look up a child's butthole, Michael Jackson? I didn't really look. I didn't do that. And it was just an accusation. You did it, you little queer. Like, Jesus, Barbara, calm it down. But like, it was a slower process, Now you can make a tweet and then the next thing, it's on the news that night. And then there's fucking 40 million YouTube comment videos that are all 10 minutes each, getting 1 million views each the next day. And 24 hours later, it's all gone on to the next thing. So, like, if you were an Atlantean looking to loosh fucking energy for your crystals to run your city.
Well, imagine someone's pitching this concept to you and you don't know it's the Disney movie Atlantis and you just heard someone talking about Pizzagate and they're like, okay, there's this secret society that goes underground. They feed off of emotions and it helps them live forever. And it's a self-appointed dynasty of these, like, this hierarchy that you don't get any say over and they keep it from you. It almost sounds like you're just talking about the Clintons again. Yeah.
That these people live to be 8,000 years old. They have the knowledge of the old world. They've survived cataclysm upon cataclysm, and they'll know more than you'll ever know, and you're just kind of like an emotion battery that they run their society on. You're like, like what did fucking Phil? What's your man's name? Phil. He got his fingers lasered off, and he was like fighting aliens underground. What's his name? Phil.
Oh,
Phil.
Sounds like Matt's area.
Old Phil. Okay. Yeah, I get what. Yeah, I'm just trying out my.
I have no idea what the reference is. Someone that gets
is this like the secret space program guys?
Phil Schneider.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about a sci-fi movie.
No. Phil Schneider.
The deep underground military base.
Yes, sir. Like that shit he was talking about. He was like, I was a demolitions expert and was working for the government and I blew a hole in something and I went down into the wrong thing and I landed in
the Russian in the Atlantis movie.
Exactly. He landed in the fucking thing and went, huh! And then all of a sudden all the aliens were working away and they were like calling him in on their fucking alien radios, still losing telepathy. Fuck, there's a lad down here and he has all these fingers. Quick, get the finger lasers. So like, who's to say that that's not what Phil discovered? Like that there was when you're talking about the they that people always talk about, the shadow government, the thing that runs everything. Like we all think it's from outer space, but most of those UAPs are coming from under the water. Like all of the UAPs now that are being announced as real, like, yeah, there's fucking loads of them. The government have admitted to it after denying it for 70 years. And they're saying like 70% of them come from the sea. So when you're talking about Atlantis being like a self-contained civilization, massively advanced under the sea, like those cunts are fucking, to have spaceships that are flying up and coming out fucking with us and then going back down again. Like that's totally on the nose for this movie's technology, you know?
I mean, I guess the current pop culture version is, now we're back to superheroes, which so it's Namor and his Atlantean kingdom, or Aquaman's down there in Atlantis now. So now that they just tied it in with superheroes, I guess with since Namor, it's like directly Disney because that's Marvel now. So
now I'm brainstorming an Atlantis Disney sequel, but it's basically got Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein instead of Rourke and Callahan, because the island would have the huge sub that can go into the
The island, the Little St. James, is the peak of a mountain that used to be like underwater, and the mountain you go into the blue and white building with the gold top that's on Epstein's Island, and there's an elevator down into the middle of a mountain that goes down into like the tunnel system for Atlantis. Yeah,
Epstein's Atlantis.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. How long did it take? 2 hours and 17 minutes to get to Jeffrey Epstein from a Disney movie. Hey, that's pretty slow. That's a little slower than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, maybe think about a lot of stuff like these kind of like ancient civilization shits, man. And I've thought about it. I haven't been very active, over the last while, putting out content, but I have been consuming a lot of stuff, and magic is real. Like magic is definitely very real, and the power that humans have is very strong, and we don't really even know it. And it comes from a place that we've long forgotten. And when you talk about these things as if they're, fiction but could be true, like in a child's fantasy, I think as children we believe it without question, and then as adolescents we question without belief, and then as adults we're allowed to do either or both or none. And a lot of people choose none because they're too busy with life. And when you choose both, you end up not really saying that because you're not sure. But like, if you're willing to accept it and look a little bit deeper into it, there's so much literature and there's so much like content that would absolutely confirm to anybody who wants to find it that there's something happening, and it's way bigger than any of us can even imagine. Even the best well-read, most informed, secret handshake, fucking, Hiram Abiff, apron wearing, bopped on the head, secret ring, and you blow it, it goes woo, like whatever motherfucker you have.
Brisket making.
yeah. Like the shit is for real, and Atlantis is a story that has stood for what 3,500 years.
It's not like
good, Matt.
It's just like it's kind of depressing to think like anything before Göbekli Tepe of human history is just smelly people walking around throwing rocks and eating dirt. That's depressing. There's got to be more than that.
It doesn't make no goddamn bit of sense. I knew as a child that wasn't the case. I'd have dreams of like tectonic plates being like subsuming one another as one went underneath the other one, and it was just like the top one was just like scraping and eating away like giant cities and turning old civilizations ruins back into magma and like eating itself. And like we know now definitely that tectonic movement is way faster than we had presumed. There's a big chunk of fucking Africa after cracking off like when you bite into a Magnum and you take too big of a bite and the chocolate all fucking snaps apart. You're like, oh fuck, and you're trying to catch all the bits of chocolate. Like Africa's falling apart like some fucking peanut brittle right now. And they think like that shit takes, centuries. It's like, just after moving 40 feet in about 6 months, like there's going to be a whole other continent now, Eastern Africa, within the next like 5 years. When that water comes and fills in the gap, those guys, it's going to be like Littlefoot and the Land Before Time, just being like, "Mommy, Littlefoot," like fucking trying to jump the gap and shit. Like it's happening, man. That shit. Like, did you see that magnetic wave where there's like 80-foot waves coming from Antarctica crashing off the coast of Western Africa?
I know, I didn't see this.
Fuck.
Waves are coming from Antarctica.
Every day, every so often, like within like an hour and a half or whatever, there's these magnetic fucking satellite images of these huge 80-foot, 100-foot waves, like Leviathan level waves that are coming from the southern hemisphere, starting just like directly south of the bit that juts out, the booby on Western Africa. So like the bubble
I've never
butt.
heard it referred to as the booby.
Yeah, the bubble butt of Western Africa, like directly south of that, there's a big black, like it looks like something from fucking Pirates of the Caribbean, son. Like a big, like hulking, ginormous continent-sized water anomaly that rises 80 to 100 feet in the air and becomes ginormous, and then over the course of an hour or two takes over the whole Atlantic Ocean, like and crashes off the coast. But the thing is, like, this is all being read off these satellites, and there's lads
They're trying to memory hole it, man. I've got PolitiFact says it's a data glitch,
but it's happening every fucking day, man. So the people who are looking at it on the west coast of Africa, they're all going like, I do not see any waves. There are no waves. So what the fuck is happening every day with this data glitch where it's making this every time it's making it? Could you find a picture? You couldn't find a picture of the actual thing.
I can't find. I mean, that's why I'm saying that they're memory holing it.
Mm.
They're giving it the Disney Atlantis treatment, where you bring it up to the surface and then you just like bury it by saying that this isn't feasible.
It's very weird. It's looking like it's a giant, Cthulhu like creature that's like breaching in the Southern Ocean and kind of splashing back down and causing a big wave. And it's like, today? No, I'll destroy the world tomorrow.
I've actually never heard of this. There's something called rogue waves, freak waves, monster waves, killer waves, extreme waves, and they're real because these ones are based on reports from capital ships, ocean liners, lighthouses. But here's an example of like you've just got a wave all of a sudden that's like 2 to 3 times the size of any other wave. Mm-hmm. And according to the wiki article here, it almost sounds like there's not a specific explanation for how and why these happen.
Fucking Leviathans, bro. Go to that 80 foot waves tab and just go onto images and just see if you can see the magnetic. Go down a bit. Down. That one there. Look with the big. Yeah, that's the one.
So and it even shows data glitch they're talking about.
It even shows like
underwater anomaly.
Larger.
It brought me somewhere else.
Yeah, but just show the picture on the yeah. See, you can see the stink lines in the direction that it's going. So it like pops up in the southern, like just north of Antarctica. And if you go down a little bit on the right hand side there, you'll see how big it goes, and it goes all the way up through the fucking whole Atlantic. Like, it's very, very weird.
That's wild.
And the thing is, is it underground or underwater nuclear testing? Is it, what could it be? Could it be something trying to rise up from under the ocean? You're talking Atlantis there.
Like, from less than a month ago.
The crab.
It's happening the whole time. One of them happened yesterday. Like, it's bonkers, that shit like that is happening and it's not on the news because they're just like, yeah, well, that's, it is what it is. But like, what the fuck could that be? The same as the Schumann resonance going crazy, and do you remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago?
I know I've seen articles along that nature in the past.
Yeah, maybe a couple of months ago, the Schumann resonance like turned from like a into this like angelic choir, and all of the meters like turned into these like mad like fractal patterns and stuff like that. And everyone was like, yeah, no, it's just a glitch, yeah. Switch them all off, don't say nothing. So there's shit going on, there's shit happening, and we're not being told about it. And it's definitely like supernatural or ultranatural, but like beyond common or garden science, and that we think is magic. But I guess there's explanations for it, like just on the themes of Atlantis and this secret knowledge and an ancient civilization. Like, it's nothing that Randall Carlson or Graham Hancock haven't kind of basically proven, that there are things that archaeology doesn't want us to know. Flint Dibble, you fucking fucker. But like, do you know why are we not allowed to discuss it? Why are those things not allowed to be said? And I think there's a big push towards human beings being told to tell themselves that they're shit. You're saying, you know, those voices that would what was that called? That MK Ultra thing where you're told you're a piece of shit the whole time.
The psychic driving.
So we're being psychically driven to be like, humans are parasites. Mr. Anderson, we tried to give you everything and we tried to give you paradise, but you couldn't handle it. We're being told we're shit. We're ruining the earth. We're destroying the planet. You know, our rampant consumerism, even just wanting things makes us all cunts. And, you know, men are shit. I'd rather be in the forest with a bear than a man. Fucking white people are fucking colonizing bastards. And, you know, like there's a lot of just negative, like humans are terrible. We're a parasite the planet. Plan to be better off without us. Like that shit that's like fucking suicidal teenagers are telling themselves like internally. And we're having a broadcast at us by everything that can speak, you know? So there's that like psychic driving of humans are terrible. Wouldn't we be better off without us?
Only if you don't pay your carbon credits. If you don't pay your carbon credits, then yeah, we're better off without you. But if you pay them, then you're actually better. It's like a net positive.
Yeah, but if you're powering emotion crystals that are based off shame and guilt, there's a lot of power, do you know? Like, because the money actually means nothing. It's the guilt of feeling so bad that you'd actually pay the money that you're being given for the labor you're giving out.
Well, the whole
money doesn't exist or whatever in that case.
The whole premise of this Cult Disney series is that Disney is casting real magic into the world. They created a real like a Disney universe. And what is Disney doing but taking emotions and nostalgia and then converting that into like a currency, you know what I mean? So like they themselves are doing what they're showing the Atlanteans of doing, of having this magical light emitting crystal that can take your emotion and convert it into energy that they use for their life force. And so that's what Disney does. They weaponize, they nostalgia, they use that emotion to convert it into very real energy that they use as a life force for this huge kind of being.
Yeah.
Now they're fracking because they're making the live action remakes. That's the fracking stage of this, I guess, where you're trying to just the last little bit out,
milk it out. But also convert a digital native population from the nostalgia of the millennial cartoon versions that these new digital natives won't watch because they're too old-fashioned, so they have to make them hyper-realistic. But they still have the same story as the old ones. So the millennial parents are like, well, I love the cartoon Lion King. And the kids are like, yeah, but it looks really old. It's like us watching fucking Bugs Bunny from the 70s when we were in the 90s. It's like, I'll watch it, but like, Mel Brooks making old fucking vaudeville jokes. And we're like, I don't really get it, but it's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. And Mel Blanc, not Mel Brooks, Mel Blanc making old fucking, I should have got off at Saskatoon or whatever. And then now they're fucking making hyper-realistic versions of like, what? The Lion King, Aladdin.
Calypso's on Aladdin. I mean, half the Pinocchio, half of these just like kind of, half of their own movies end up in the memory hole after 2 months, you know?
Bro, the Pinocchio one with Tom Hanks in it. Like, where are you going? Pleasure Island. Get the fuck out of here, Tom Hanks. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's in Greece now.
And they don't even do it. Like, they could have done like full on with their Pleasure Island. And they kind of milquetoast it, which is why, huh?
Yeah, it's too on the nose, bro. Like, people be watching that and going, I'm going to follow Tom Hanks on Instagram. What are all these children's shoes here for? Like, it's fucking... But like, still, like, you know, turning little boys into horses. And what do you do with horses? You fucking ride them. Do you know? Donkeys, whatever.
But like, you can ride a donkey.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder. They wriggle more, but you get it in there. Jesus, he always gives me sweets afterwards. No, I just think, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm talking shit. This is not what this podcast is for at all. I'd have to admit I didn't listen to any episodes before we came on, but
no, we're very tangent friendly here.
Yeah, no, I hope like that I'm not. That you guys are not like, oh fuck, what the fuck do we? I'm kind of aware that I'm saying these things and going, I'm having this thought right now in the moment, I've had it like in my head during the day getting ready, and this is the first time it's come out in words. And it might sound a little bit disjointed, or it might sound a little bit like kind of unpolished, but like I've been thinking about this shit for a really long time, and then like you get a chance to talk about it with Atlantis at the core, and this movie's themes and at the core of it, like it's fucked up what's going on out there, and it's stuff is being hidden from us, and I think it's fucked up, you know. And like I know I'm conspiracy guys out the door, but like there's something wrong, man, with like taking something like an ancient civilization and hiding it from us. We're being made to feel inferior, and what better way to inferiorize and you know, make helpless, like learned helplessness, a forced learned helplessness on a civilization, than to tell them like, without us you are nothing. You can't we're going to make it illegal to like collect rainwater. We're not going to be able to tell you how to survive if an apocalypse comes and we turn off the electricity. You're going to be completely dependent on us. And if shit goes down, you're fucked. You need us, man, to create codependency. Like that's like an abusive parental relationship, you know, where they'll make the child feel like you can't do anything on your own without me. And it's a selfish thing for a parent to do that to a child. But that's what like the ruling class are doing to the population, while simultaneously denying us the knowledge of actually the greatness of our history. And it's not just like, you know, white people. You can see it being done through colonization and through, you know, homogenization of culture or deletion of history. You know, like they deleted loads of records of the British deleted loads of records of Irish history and blew them up, you know, blew up the government buildings during the Civil War here in the 1920s and stuff. And, you know, black people try to find out their history, and it only goes back so far to some guy called Smith or Jones or some shit, some slave owner or whatever. And they can't find their actual like lineage or their history or their heritage, you know.
Some of my classmates directly confronted my high school history teacher about that. They're like, why are we not learning anything about our people, you know?
Like, I want to ask you, Matt, like, is there an active conversation among Japanese people about the almost surety that within 40 years, Japanese culture is going to be in ruins because of the low birth rate and the low perpetuation of the population and the culture?
Yeah, that's daily news in Japan, you know, like numbers, childbirths are down this much, this is down this much. I mean, I have one kid, we didn't do replacement rate, right?
They don't really want more maths, I don't think.
Yeah, they did the forced no, they didn't. But
wanted to pure the blood.
But immigration is actually a pretty notable thing in the news as well right now because of that, because it's getting to be where there's work shortages. The article yesterday was like, you know, convenience stores since the 70s in Japan have been 24 hours. And like it was like 12% of them no longer are, or something, which honestly, most of them don't need to be open 24 hours. That's kind of insane. Getting people to work there for low wages. I just did my taxes and I do them through my mom. And first she was like, oh, it's like same wages last year. Oh, can you switch that to American currency? And she said, did you guys take a big pay cut? I was like, no, the yen's just garbage, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, they're starting to bring in more immigrant workers. Said convenience stores, several 7-Elevens now have people clearly from other South Asian countries. Like they're starting to bring in, which 5 years ago you would not have seen that like at all. I think I went 2 years without actually seeing, I probably saw some Chinese and Koreans, but I think I went like a good year without actually seeing another European descent person like in the same room.
Fuck, man. They make you feel not real kind of a bit, I'd say.
Well, it's kind of fun because you kind of like I could take the good parts of living in Japan and ignore some of the shittier parts. Because yeah, if you are Japanese, you have to follow all these like unspoken rules where you can gaijin smash them a little bit, you know, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah,
that's sort of the ultimate power of being American in general, though. It's like you have no specific culture, so therefore no one expects a lot from you in terms of respecting their culture. So if you do, it's like you're impressing everybody, and if you don't, you're just filling the expectation, which is, it's sort of a superpower in a way. It's very liberating.
Yes, yes.
Like that Ricky Gervais movie, The Invention of Lying, which is a terrible premise because it's not the invention of lying. Really, it's the invention of every thought that you have in your head, you have to say out loud. It's not really based on lies. It's based on like inner monologue. But like the whole premise is that everyone was honest all the time. Nobody ever lied. And then he lied once and then said, "Oh, I was talking to God." And they're like, "You were talking to God? What did he say?" And then he became a messiah and everyone was like, "Oh my God, like we have to listen to him." And then he just had to start making shit up like
like a religious figure.
Well, yeah, I mean, like any religion, yeah, basically. But it just became like a thing where if you speak with authority or you do that, people more than likely will probably follow along. Like it's not a hard and fast rule, but in kind of subservient societies like Japan, I mean, you could push your way around places. But what I mean is, like, are Japan and Japanese people aware that, like, if they don't start fucking blowing loads into young ones instead of like into fucking tissue filled fucking pillows with women painted, with cartoon women painted on them, if they don't start blowing loads into real women and start having babies, like, their culture is fucked. Like, they're going to be done. Like, is that a real worry on a daily basis? Because, like, to say that anywhere else, you'd be going like, Jesus, that's very that's overly nationalistic and very far right, and it's almost, you know,
what's the don't look up thing where people don't want to think about it too hard. But like I'm saying, I'm just bringing up Japan today, and let's see what the headlines are.
Like, I heard there was like a holiday, or there's like a thing where, like, maybe 10 days a year you get paid, you still get your workday paid, but you got to go home and fake your missus.
That's something someone probably said at some point, but didn't really take on so well.
Because in Italy, they have like an aging population. The population pyramid is fucked, and like within 20 years, they won't have enough people, young people in the workforce, to be able to be making enough taxes to pay for the social welfare pensions to take care of the older people.
Very much on, yes, that is a normal concern. Yeah, Japan's real wages fall in March for record 24th month. Bread loaves recalled in Japan after rat remains were found. Here's a good one. Man arrested for smearing bodily fluid on acquaintance's car. Okay.
That's just a Tuesday in America.
Yeah.
That's the headline in Japan.
Yeah. It's like one neighborhood is like one street. That's all those shits happen. Why? He found rats. Found rats in the motherfucking Wonder Bread, and then smeared shit on the windscreen, man. Like, it's I just think there's different values and there's different things that people are being told are like wrong, you know. To be proud of your country is wrong.
Because it's like people know it, but it's like, well, but I don't have enough money, and, you know, my job's really busy, and, you know, blah blah blah. So it's, yeah. And then government's like, we'll have subsidies and things like you just said, but then that doesn't really happen. So it's a lot of talk and little doing, because things change very slowly in Japan. That's one of the problems. So even it's hard to take a effective measure quickly, which is kind of the bugaboo.
Well, you can't say that. That's a racist word. But it's one of those things where I'm just like I realized it a few years ago, and more now I see, like, we as people are being brainwashed into thinking that we're shit. Like, humans are a virus, and there's a lot of people going like, I'm electing not to have kids. Like, that's a big thing in America now, where there's like everybody under 35 is like, no, I'm not bringing kids into this crazy world. And you're like, what the fuck?
I mean, if I was in my 20s, maybe I wouldn't. But, you know, I've probably been somewhat programmed by things like these Disney movies. Okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a job, you know.
Yeah.
Father and son, you know, find a girl, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. But maybe you're in your 20s.
Find a girl, worship Muhammad, and change your name, and then...
It's he went off the deep end. But, like, that's that Western ideal, but, like, I don't think people who understand, they're listening to all of these Western media sources saying you're a piece of shit and you're not worth reproducing and blah blah blah. Like there's another 70% of the world that are absolutely blapping out young ones and young fellas, absolutely like a fucking sausage factory of babies going out, plam, 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 like horsing them out.
Maybe we are supposed to live near the equator. I don't know.
But I'm just saying, like, if we want to keep the Western world going, they're going to have to supplant those people in where all the cool shit is. Because otherwise, like, you're going to be, like, you can't have a fucking Microsoft chip factory in the middle of a favela. Like, do you know what I mean? You can't be constructing luxury computer items in the middle of a fucking slum. Do you know? So they're going to have to fucking get these people moving, and usually it's like a massive war or a famine or a natural disaster that makes the place where they are situated and happy unlivable. And maybe with Atlantis, that was what happened, that the rest of the world was crumbling while Atlantis was at its peak. And you know, the story goes that the gods were displeased with how some of the gods were going down and having a feel of some of the good-looking ones, so they decided to wipe it off and make it even. And they were all displaced to all the corners of the world to spread their knowledge and whatever. And I just think, like, they were too big for their boots, and they got wiped out.
That's the story, yeah.
So, like, is that what's like? Is that a story that's being retold to us now? That's why Atlantis is always kind of on the fore. Like, everyone's fucking heard of it. There's from children to old people. Everyone knows the story. There was an advanced civilization that got wiped out because they got too haughty. They got too big for their boots, and they thought they were untouchable. And you know, they were smote by natural disaster, and they were forced to, like, disperse. Like, has anyone seen the shit that's going on in fucking Tajikistan? Have you seen those motherfuckers?
You're just making up countries at this point.
No, man. Type in Tajikistan and
we talk about their new city. Is that the city they built?
Everything that they built
with white marble. Yeah,
everything's fucking white marble and gold, son. It's like what you would imagine like a brand new Atlantis to be, or when they show you pictures of what the pyramids at Giza started off as, they had like limestone, you know, and gold topped fucking, everything was decorated and perfect and pristine.
I mean, the dumb but entertaining film 2012 seems kind of like a modern, you know, Atlantis crash sort of thing, with giant rogue waves.
Dude, we really fucking believed that was, like, I had my life like ready to stop. I was like, I'm not going to do anything now until 2012. And after December 21st, 2012, like within 2 months, I started like producing those conspiracy guys in my mind, and I was like, well, I didn't die from the fucking cataclysm, so here we go.
Do something else.
Better go do something about it. Like, but it's just like, we're always ready for a fucking zombie disaster. We're always ready for an apocalypse. We're ready for global. We've been on the vinegar strokes. Fucking Al Gore has been tickling our ball sack since 2000 on his little cherry picker, going zzz, water a little bit this high, zzz, a little bit this high. Everyone's fucking, we're all edging and fucking, you know, we're on the last 5 pulls before cataclysm for 25 years. You know, all the movies have fucking zombies in them. Everything's end of the world, this fucking zombie, this. All the most popular games are all like dystopian futures. The Last of Us, fucking Fallout, nuclear war. Like, it's almost like we're all absolutely obsessed with the world ending all the time, and that shit fucking sits on you. That's that. I can't remember that term that you keep saying. Psychic driving.
Psychic driving.
Like, we're being psychically driven by every fucking piece of material and every piece of modern media. The biggest new one now is Walton Goggins is the star of Fallout, which is from the computer game, and it's like nuclear bombs go off all over America. Like no, another dystopian IP where we're like, oh yeah, fucking world destruction.
We learn to stop worrying and love the bomb.
But like, can we not do that? Can we not stop fucking? Can we start making something positive and making something that's not like the world is over and
stop and say good enough? You know?
Yeah. I'm feeling it. Like,
I think that might be part of the American DNA too, though, because when we were talking before about people having like one kid instead of having like say 10 kids, which was like the norm for a very long time, and the only place that it seems to be the norm now in America at least would be like in Mormonism, and Mormonism. It's like, and I guess maybe Amish. There's like a certain like little pockets, but it's almost looked down upon outside those pockets. Like, oh, it's a vagina, not a clown car. That concept of like, stop having all these kids, but it's the inverse. Like, you actually do want people to have more kids. But then the Mormons, the point that I was making is that the one population that makes that part of their core being is have as many kids as possible. They also basically had always lived in this perpetual end times. Like the earliest Mormons, when they talked about end times, they were like, it's happening in 4 months. Like they weren't talking about in some abstract in the far future. It was like, no, this exact time you can set your watch to it that things are going to end. And then it would be like, okay, well, maybe it's 2 years and not 2 months. And then it's like, okay, maybe it's 20 years and not 2 years. But there is like almost a part of the American DNA where people in this country seem like obsessed with the end times. Book of Revelation is like constantly being preached in almost every denomination here.
Sorry to bring the end times, but I do have to get my train to work in 15 minutes. I guess.
Fuck! It's the end times already. Shit.
Yeah, it's the end times.
Working now.
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm going to work after this. I'm going to go teach kids.
What the fuck? In the world, apocalypse.
But yeah, Gordo, tell them where you're at before we wrapped it up.
Oh, I'm everywhere, man. I am Legion. ThoseConspiracyGuys.com is the website. Those Conspiracy Guys is the podcast. I'm on all the apps. If you look out your window when the moon is full, I'd be there, dancing in the shadows. Don't tell anybody though, because I have to get home. I don't want to get caught dancing in the shadows because it's a fucking. Do you know what I mean? How do you explain that shit? I do have a bunch of new shows coming out. I've not been well in the head, and I'll explain that to anybody else listening if you're wondering. He's fucking making shows for these fuckers, and he's not putting out Those Conspiracy Guys episode. I've not been well, and I'm, as you can tell from this one, I'm kind of on the way back, and I have a whole bunch of shows recorded already for season 9. I think I've got 40 something shows in the can, and that's nearly a prick tease to say that, but loads of great ones. I've got one coming up on Chernobyl, the Manhattan Project, the history of Lucifer. We revisited the story of Nikola Tesla, which is a great episode from way back in the day. I have loads of interviews, swapcasts, and loads of mad interesting shit coming up. So season 9 is going to be molto bene. And yeah, man, it'll all be on the website or any of the socials that I still post on that you're allowed to be on without getting kicked off. But thanks so much for having me, and I might put this on my feed as well. So make sure you give all your tags and let my people find you as well, because I'm sure Occult Disney is right up their alleyway. Mwah.
Much appreciated. Now I still got 2 hours of Charlie Manson Revisited to get through, so
it gets good at the end, man. We talk. I want to do an interview with Tom O'Neill as well, and I'm talking to him back and over on Instagram, and he's a cool dude. Like, but he's like, I'm really fed up with talking about that now. I'm done. Stop asking me about Charlie Manson. But yeah, like, thanks so much for having me on. I hope I didn't pontificate too much. You guys didn't seem to want to interrupt me with add-ons. You're like, oh, let him go, let him cook. He's going. But maybe we can do something again in the future.
Rock on. We got lots more movies too. So what's going on in your world, PA?
The big ones is I'm wrapping up my first adult comic series at adultoccult.com. It's called Illuminati. It's 100 pages, a bunch of different stories. But I've got the one that's coming right after this is one I've been promising for years, that it's the NASA comic. This is never a straight answer. It's about Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landings. And this one's nice. 50 or 60 pages, I think, of a bunch of different artwork. And it basically is an anthology one shot. So you don't got to worry about I have to read a bunch of different comics. Do I have to understand it? It's just all one and done. And it's got every single Stanley Kubrick or Moon conspiracy theory that I could muster and find out there from all the experts, fully illustrated. We even dive into every Stanley Kubrick film. There's a reenactment of Eyes Wide Shut on the moon landing, like soundstage, just to give you an idea of like how crazy it gets. So check that one out at nasacomic.com, and you can find me as always on paranoidamerican.com.
Just imagine Tom Cruise jumping up and down on the set going, I love this shuttle. I love this shuttle. Yeah. What even?
I talk lots of crap about media. My hub is on Patreon at Podcastius. We talk about really good and really bad movies and films and filth. Just recorded Dr. Strangelove yesterday, actually. Talk about the Twilight Zone Time Enough podcast. My brain stopped working. Space 1999 on Podcast 1999. There we go. Those are the ones I do. And there's some video game ones with Luke Loves Pokemon, Hyrule Field Report, and Game Show, which I'm sometimes on, even though I'm not much of a gamer.
That's a lot of links, bro. You gotta get you a link tree.
It's one link. It's a lot of podcasts. It's one link. One link, lots of podcasts. Okay, well, I guess we're going to descend into the sea.
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit nasacomic.com.
nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com. Oh, nasacomic.com. CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on, that's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions.
Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.